cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
All right, guys, here we go again. Welcome to episode number 260 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, March the 8th, 2025. My name is Jeremy Lee. Guys, we are back. Tomorrow night, Hockey Cards Gong Show host Josh Madigan will join me for the Fanatics Collect Hockey Show, guys. And if you are looking to add a grail to your collection, make sure to check out Fund Your Cards. They are the hobby's leading consolidator. They will help you finance the purchase with your own cards. Visit fundyourcards.com, and there you will find their proprietary client platform that cements them as the leaders in the space as well. Mint Inc. is a leading hobby brand in Canada, everybody. Check out their 2 Toronto locations. Their online shopping with worldwide shipping. They do live stream shopping, auctions, breaks, grading, and more. Their primary focus at Mint Inc. is to bring the ultimate hobby experience to collectors in Canada. Check out mintinc.ca, you guys. Also, check out GP Sports Cards for a wide variety of hockey card breaks located here on YouTube, streaming every Wednesday and Friday. All new products and breaks can be found on their website, gpsportscards.com. And for all sealed products, check out their retail storefront, Total Sports Cards and Collectibles. And guys, if you are looking for a gem mint in sports statistics, Rolling Insights delivers high-quality data for everybody. Businesses trust their data feeds to power their platforms with real-time stats, box scores, and player and team performance data. Fans and fantasy players rely on SportsWise for instant access to performance data, so you can finally ditch those messy spreadsheets. Whether you're running a business or for the love of the game, turn raw stats into a real advantage. Visit rolling-insights.com today. And guys, are you familiar with Chronosio? Chronosio is the ultimate inventory manager for cards that exists on the market. Imagine an inventory tool that does all the heavy lifting for you with their state-of-the-art AI autofilling that is 90% accurate. And if you sell on eBay, you'll love their fully integrated connection that's been a trusted part of the eBay community since 2017. Millions of cards have already been listed and sold using Chronosio. But let's be real, guys. If your collection has less than 100 cards, you might get by with another system. But once you hit 1,000, 50,000, or even 250,000 cards, there's simply no contest. Chronosio is the only option for serious collectors and inventory managers. Why settle for less? Elevate your collection management today. Get started now at home.chronosio.com. And if you'd like to sell your cards on eBay, but you want the pros to handle it for you, reach out to me and I can help you consign your cards with Slab Sharks. Hit me up on Instagram or send me an email to jeremy@slabsharks.com. Guys, this show is available on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow and subscribe for free. Please leave a rating or review on your podcast platform. And thanks always to all of our loyal viewers and podcast listeners for your ongoing support. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel or the pod, please take a moment and do so. And as always, we're going to try to get to as many as your comments and questions tonight. Let's bring out our co-host, none other than Mr. Joe Poirot from Santa Cruz. Joe, buddy, how are you?
I am doing well, Jay Lee. How are you tonight?
I am doing well. So my little guy, he just turned 6, and he knows that at Halloween we give out, team bags filled with hockey cards. So out of the blue today, he goes, Daddy, this is like half an hour. Daddy, can I have 2 packs of hockey cards? So I go into my stash, I pull out 2 cards, and as I'm kind of getting ready, brushing my teeth, and he goes, Daddy, he made up a game with the hockey cards, and for like 5 or 10 minutes before, I didn't have much time, but I was sitting on the floor with him, and we were basically playing his version of Go Fish, but with hockey cards. Like, do you have a St. Louis Blue, or do you have a Chicago Blackhawk? And so it was fun. That was maybe the most my little guy has ever really been into sports cards yet. So that was kind of a big day in the Lee household here with my little 6-year-old. So that was a fun start to the evening for sure.
Foreshadowing of things to come, I'm sure. When Bridget and Mason both come of age, I'm sure they're going to be enjoying themselves some sports cards. They've got the DNA.
They got the cards. They'll have the cards. That is for sure. So let's go to some comments here, and then we're going to bring our first guest here shortly. We have Sean Cates. He's also known as Victory Investments on Instagram. He's got a great account. I know you and I are both fans of his, and he's been on the show before. He's actually the guy who, that sports cards is a lifestyle, sports cards are a lifestyle. That song, he wrote it, he performed it. He's going to be coming on. Maybe I was going to say maybe we'll ask him to sing it, but I don't think we will tonight. But let's say hello. We got Jacob Dahl here. He was first tonight. What's up, Jacob? Junk Wax Museum. What is going on? Laura is here. Welcome to the show. Michael is here. We got Gramazing, level 7. What's up, Gramazing? Ben Diamond is here. Mark Santucci is, yes, Mark, I saw our young goaltender, Dustin Wolf, had a nice shutout today. Larry's Classic, good evening to you. Jeff McMahon, good to see you. Wesley Collects, let's do it. You betcha. Jason Pringle, good evening, buddy. Good to see you. Kevin Hawthorne is here. Ben Burrows from Collect is here, you guys. We got Dan's Vintage Baseball PC from the YouTube channel of the same name. We got Piper Mac. Mookie Chilson is here. Orlando from A Collector's Dream from the same YouTube channel, A Collector's Dream. Mark Santucci. Has your 6-year-old mentioned Calgary? Yeah, I mean, today he said, because I cheer for Calgary. My wife cheers for Montreal. She's from there. So I said, I'm hoping for Calgary. Mommy's hoping for Montreal. Who are you hoping for? He goes, I don't care. I'm good either way. Either team winning is good for him. Yankees fan. Yes, right. Today was the biggest indication of that so far. What's up, Mike Double V? We have Karvin Cheung in the chat. He's going to be joining us a little bit later tonight. The architect, Mr. Karvin Cheung. Looking forward to having you on soon. Nick Chen, good evening. Good evening to you. I just saw watching live for the first time in 2 months and not watching 2 days later at 1.5 speed. I have to say, if you watch or you listen on podcasts, these are long episodes. I know that, guys. So either listen to it a part now, a part later, or just listen to it faster. I'll try to slow down so it's not talking too fast for you guys. Trevor Coulter, Tampa Bay fan. What's going on, Trevor? Travis Kanakin, he ran the card show that I went to in Winnipeg a couple weekends ago. What's up, Travis? Good to see you. Good to see you. All right, Joe. So, let me see. What time is it now? We've got about 7 minutes until Sean is going to join us. Bob Boozle says, I listen at half speed to savor the program. And Laura says, Jeremy, what are your thoughts regarding the tag slab? Yeah, good question. I just learned about some issue with the tag slabs. I literally just learned about it like today. I'd heard some rumblings, but I didn't know anything about it. Joe somewhat brought me up to speed, and then I made a phone call just to look into it a little bit myself. I got to tell you, though, I haven't seen any content on it. So I know there's content on it. I know, some of the drama channels are talking about it, and hey, I mean, that's fine, right? But what do I think about it? Well, I can tell you this about tag slabs. From what I know, they are UV resistant. They are scratch resistant. They are counterfeit resistant, but they're not idiot resistant. They're just not idiot resistant. So if you're somebody who is throwing your slabs against the wall, driving over them with your car, and what I've learned is trying to push your thumb through it, I think there's better things you can do with your time. Like I've owned PSA slabs and Beckett slabs for decades. I've never once done any of those things. And I've owned tag slabs now for a couple of years, I guess, Joe. And I've had more, but I've moved some, but I've got like 75 or so in my collection right now. I've never had an issue. I've never had one break. That's a cabinet full of them right there. But I'm also not like doing the things like I said, they're just not idiot proof, right? But I don't know that any other slab is either. So those are my thoughts. I think there's also a bit of a give and take as far as if you want like a glass-like clarity to your slab, you're going to have to give a little in terms of maybe durability. But again, I mean, I don't know about you. I'm not throwing them against the wall. I'm not trying to break them. And one of the reasons why they, if you do try to break them, they're going to crack and hopefully ruin your card inside. Like that, that's my position. I don't know what Tag thinks, but if you're going to try to break one, I hope you ruin your card, and I hope you cut yourself a little bit too. Go get a Band-Aid and wipe the blood off your hand. So that's really all I can say about it. Again, I really only became aware of this like mostly today. Saw a little bit of maybe on like in the Facebook groups or something as I'm scrolling through. But anyway, that's what I know, Laura, about that. I love my tag slabs, easily the nicest slabs in the hobby, and the most consistent grading, bar none. But we'll leave it at that. Like, I'm not employed by Tag. I make no money off of Tag, but I love my Tag cards, my Tag slab cards, and that's about it. Yeah, and I am an investor, but hopefully one day I will make money on my investment. Okay, Travis. Hey, Joe, let's go. Faster the talking, the more keeps me on my toes for sure. Todd McDonald says exactly. Someone looking to get 15 minutes of fame, trying to damage a slab. I guess, again, I don't really know what's been going on with that. Bob Boozle, maybe I should hide the tag slabs from the wife. Bob Boozle, always with the good comments, Bob Boozle. Midlife, we got Greg here. Greg, I have to shout you out. I really enjoyed your video today. I took it seriously. I spent a lot of time coming up. Not only, Joe, did I spend a lot of time coming up with my top 5 cards from 1955 Topps Baseball, after I had to go in and edit my comment and totally like change one. I'm like, wait a second, I forgot. I actually had to remove Willie Mays and replace him with the Ernie Banks because it's a second-year Ernie Banks card, and I love second-year cards. Right?
I struggle with that. I struggled with leaving the Koufax off too, but
you can't. That was my number one.
I know. To be honest, it doesn't pop as much as a few of the other cards for me. I don't know. I mean, so everyone's got a different eye, right?
Exactly. And me and Greg both had Sandy at number one. Good evening, Foul Ball. Welcome to the show. USMNT. Oh God. USMNT. Laura, Marchand to the Panthers. Oh my gosh, that blew my mind. We're not going to get into a bunch of hockey talk right now, guys, but that is a monstrous trade, and the Panthers are. I don't see how they don't win the Stanley Cup again. You are welcome, Greg. And Greg, like, keep doing these every year. Work your way through all the years. That was a lot of fun, guys. Go check out the YouTube channel. Check out his video. It released earlier today, and it was just a lot of fun. For sure. Mookie says, Jeremy, your 55 Topps list was great, even without Don Mossy. Yeah, well, I like that some of you guys took some obscure players onto the list. That was a lot of fun, too. Splendid is in shock with the Mossy pick. Gordon Morrison, good evening. Mark Santucci says, I still hate the Bruins. You're going to have to – you might not hate them as much because I think they're going to be really bad for a long time right now at this time. And Michael says, for winners of the Cup, Florida, Dallas, or Colorado. Yeah, I don't think Edmonton's in the running anymore for me. D-Nugs, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Tkachuk being out does hurt, but Marchand helps quite a bit for sure. And Foul Ball says, grading is idiot-proof. Yeah, no, it certainly isn't. Grading is not idiot-proof. That is for sure. But and like I said before, when Laura asked about the tag slabs, and to who asked the question, USMNT, I can just say that, like, again, they are UV resistant, they are scratch resistant, they are counterfeit resistant, but they're not idiot resistant. So if you want to play that way, go ahead, ruin your slabs. I'm not going to cry for you, that's for sure. D-Nugs, you pulled the red outburst. So that's a huge pull, D-Nugs. Congratulations. Celebrini is ripping it up for sure. Michael Ham says, watch out for Tampa. Yeah, you can never count Tampa out. And the professor is here. Welcome to the show, good professor. All right, guys. Sean Cates in the background, Mr. Victory Investments. Give me the thumbs up if you're ready to come on. And we're going to bring on in a moment. Joe, you ready to bring Sean on?
I am, and Sean obviously goes back with the show, way back with the show. So I'm excited and know that he brings not only a lot of creativity and card knowledge, but he's also just a really cool dude. So yeah, let's get him out here.
He's a cool, and he's a lifer like us, Joe. He loves cards. He loves hobby. All right, let's bring out everybody. Please give a warm welcome, a warm Sports Cards Live welcome to Mr. Sean Gates, Victory Investments. Sean, welcome back to the show, back to the channel. How are you, buddy?
Hey guys, good to see you, fellas. Joe, I'm near you, man. I'm not far.
Yeah, I know you're right down the road, and we had sunshine up here today, so I trust you did too. It was nice to get awesome. Close up to 70 almost.
Yeah, man, it was beautiful. We were outside all day. I'm a little sun worn out here, but I'm ready to go with you fellas. Every time I see Jeremy, I get pumped.
Let's do it, buddy. It's good to have you back, man. And as I was saying, maybe before you came into the studio, that guys, this is the guy who, again, he wrote the Sports Cards Live song. He performed it. And Sean, I mean, I don't know how long ago you did that, but we're 4 years probably. We've been running with the same song. And like, I've been tempted to mix it up, but you know what? I think we're going to stick with it for a while. What do you think? What would you like to see? Keep it going, change it up. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a lot of people don't know, Jeremy, that there is a remix to the original Sports Cards is a Lifestyle that didn't, I don't know if it didn't have the same flair to it. So I don't know if it'll ever get played, but I may have to, maybe we'll do like a country version.
No.
I mean, how many episodes have you played that song?
Gosh, we're over 700 probably overall. Yeah. Between everything.
So cool. No, I get pumped every time I hear that song. Yeah, thinking back, I mean, the fact that we're at 2025, and I mean, I don't remember, was that 21 or 20?
God, well, no, it was probably late. Well, it could have been late 2020 because the first episode on this channel ever was April 2020. And by the time, you and I connected and you did that, I'm guessing it was early 2021. I'd have to go back and play the old videos to see where we started playing that intro song. But man, I mean, it's like Teapot here says, Sports Cards is a Lifestyle. Like we're sticking with that, buddy. We're sticking with that mantra here for the show, for sure.
We'll work on something. We'll get I'll give you another couple options here in the future, and we'll see if they make it. But this one is, I mean, it's become so iconic that it's hard to go away from it.
Well, how about Mookie Chilson? He makes a good point. Sport Saturday Night Live hasn't changed their theme in 50 years. SCL should keep the tune. I think but you know what? It's nice to play a different one every once in a while. Foul Ball says we need a rock or a punk version. I'd entertain both. Like that could be a lot of fun.
Okay,
that could be a lot of fun.
Maybe do that. Maybe do a Screamo version.
Could be, yeah. Hey, look, Bob Boozle kissing my dog in a pickup truck, listening to Sports Cards Live as a pick me up. Hey, that's the first line right there. Bob Boozle's writing the lyrics for us already.
I think that's the country version.
Yeah, right.
Right. Michael Ham says it would be nice to have a variation. There is a variation. Ben Diamond says if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, or if it ain't broke, make it better. That's another thing, right? But I hear you, Ben. I hear you. I like the song. Every time before we go live, we're live, the song's playing, and I'm literally sitting here singing the song along, hoping my face doesn't appear while I'm still singing if I'm a little bit late. But what's up, Mojo? There's Jay, everybody. Welcome to the show, Jay. I just saw Jay on somewhere. Was it YouTube or Instagram? Just got like I don't know if it was $100,000 he spent on grading or $100,000 grading submission, but a huge PSA submission, Mojo. I'll be watching that video to see what you did for sure. Lots of fun. I'm sure you're having a blast going through that. It's already iconic, says Yankees fan. Love it. Well, Sean, listen, love having you on. But one thing I wanted to talk about with you tonight is changing or not changing, but entering a new lane, a new collecting lane. Well, why do I want to talk about this with you? Because you have recently done that. And, you're a veteran collector. You've been collecting. You're like a vintage baseball guy your whole life, but you've recently, I don't say pivoted, but veered your way into, while remaining on the vintage road, you're getting into modern baseball. And I think that's pretty interesting especially because I was a little surprised you weren't in it before. You're also a big Patrick Mahomes collector. I know you live in Kansas. That's where you're from. So Bobby Witt Jr., big stud out in Kansas City. You got Patrick Mahomes, of course. And now you're entering the modern baseball, I believe, because of Bobby Witt Jr. And I think this would be interesting. Share with us, please, if you will, what has that shift been like for you? Has it been shocking, interesting, boring, exciting? Just riff off of that if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I appreciate the question. What brought me back into the hobby back in 2011 was I bought I was actually living out of the country. I was in Mexico, and we took a trip back to the US, and I stopped in one of the only remaining card shops in Kansas City. At one point growing up, we had it was like 30 card shops at one point in Kansas City. They were everywhere. They popped up all over the place. But there was one OG guy that was able to remain. He was the only guy that didn't close down. So I stopped into his shop, and I'm kind of looking around, and I see I think it was a 56 Topps Jackie Robinson. It was like a PSA 2. I'd never owned a graded card at this point. And so, I didn't know much about it, but I was fascinated by this card, picked it up, ended up buying the card. I think I spent like $85 for it. It wasn't a ton. And that got my juices flowing for vintage baseball. And that I ended up going back to Mexico, and then we started ordering cards on eBay and shipping them into Mexico, and which ended up being kind of a deal we decided not to do anymore. When our mail guy was dropping the cards off under my windshield wiper, you never knew where it was going to show up. But so vintage baseball is what got me back into it. And then, I was heavy and only in vintage until, right about maybe 2018 or so. Started to do a little bit with some basketball stuff, MJ and Kobe. Obviously always loved, the 89 Upper Deck Griffey, all that stuff from my childhood, late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, early 90s. But as we all know, that junk wax stuff, there was a lot more of it than we thought when we were kids. We thought we were the only guy that had 2 or 3 89 Upper Deck Griffey rookies. But so, yeah, and then Mahomes comes along, and he drew me into the modern football world, mostly for him, dabbled with some other Chiefs guys, but mainly just Mahomes. But there was one thing I always just, for some reason, swore off in the hobby. And I said, I will never be a modern baseball collector. For some reason, I guess the stark contrast between what modern baseball even looks like compared to what I loved from vintage, with, the old artwork and looks like paintings and just the beauty of that. I just, for some reason, could not connect to modern baseball until Bobby Witt comes along and just reinvigorates my love for, I've always been a Royals fan. Actually went to more games last year than I can ever remember in my lifetime. I think I went to 13 or 14 games. And, Bobby, just that excitement of having a great young player who was in the MVP race. And so then I thought, you know what, I'm going to look at a few of his cards, and I had no idea what to look for. It just seemed like a vast world of cards that I didn't understand. Obviously, we don't have a license with Panini on the modern baseball side. So all the Prism stuff that I had learned, jumping into modern football didn't really apply the same way. Topps has the main license for modern. So then you're kind of learning, it's all things Topps. They're the ones producing all the different sets and parallels and everything. But it's been fascinating, man. I've learned a ton. I've actually had to lean into different guys in the hobby that, have dabbled in modern or are in it a lot heavier than I am to get some insight, because, when you're looking to make some purchases, you want to make sure you're not getting taken advantage of or whatever. And so, yeah, I had to do a lot of research, but man, it's been awesome. It's been super fun. I feel like kind of reinvigorated a new, when you get used to the same stuff all the time, it's kind of fun looking in a whole new world.
So, it fun and confusing, a lot of new sets, new parallels, all that sort of thing. You said it couldn't really translate from modern football. So how have you actually gone about deciding what to buy? Did you just sort of jump in, or have you taken your time? You mentioned you reached out to a few people. I think that's probably the best strategy you could possibly employ, is just leverage off of, friends and acquaintances in the hobby. But how far into this are you? Like, what percentage of your overall collection is now modern baseball, Bobby Witt Jr. stuff? Can you answer that?
Well, as far as I feel like I'm still a newbie. I mean, there's still a lot to learn. I reached out quite a bit to EFIS Pitch, to Signed and Slabbed. Those guys do a lot with modern, strongly opinionated gentlemen, but always good to hear from them. Teapot, at Sports Card Investors has shared a lot with me too. But so one thing that they really kind of encouraged me on was that to stick with the flagship stuff. There are a lot of different sets that Topps even makes that, they're not the flagship. So the Topps product, the Topps update, the Topps Chrome stuff, Bowman, when you're talking about the Bowman Chrome firsts. So that's what I really tried to kind of stick with. But man, I did a lot of research because I knew that I wasn't going to go and just buy everything, but I wanted some really important cards of Bobby Witt. And so, in fact, the first card I ever bought of Bobby, I talked to this dude on eBay for 4 months about this card. And sadly, I wish I would have bought it 4 months in advance, because he kept raising his price. I think he saw how interested I was. But yeah, no, as far as percentage wise, modern baseball is still a low percentage of my collection. But it's been a primary focus for, the last 6 months to a year.
Wow. So I know Joe is also he's into modern basketball as well as vintage baseball and vintage basketball. But Joe, you're a modern basketball guy, so you know how at least Panini Prism works. Joe, do you have any insights into modern baseball? Do you follow that market closely?
Not closely, but like Sean, I did have sort of a learning curve kind of during the pandemic, when I just was, grabbing what I could at the Target. And in some cases it was, not unlicensed Panini stuff. Like, I remember pulling like an Optic O'Neill Cruz, and going, oh, that's kind of cool. And then also from the crew on Clubhouse, Julian was always helpful as kind of orienting us. But yeah, it's a whole different universe. And the thing for me with modern baseball is I'm always kind of surprised. I know that there are, big old banger cards out there, but I'm also like always kind of like, wow, that doesn't go for more. You get like an on card for, I mean, I don't know enough about it to say, but yeah, the whole gestalt is different in terms of which brands and, the color schemes and, what you're looking for. And yeah, Bowman, I know Bowman is kind of like where a lot of people want to go for the rookie stuff. But, like you, Sean, I mean, I was just so enchanted with the older baseball that I think I say had, maybe I still have a little bit of, it's not snobbery, but it's just like looking at it going, wow, this is such a vast new universe. Maybe I'm just going to go back to collecting, 72 Topps high numbers. Where's that Carew? I want to see that Carew where he's kind of golfing a little bit, stuff I know. But I commend you, man, for getting a little out of your comfort zone and checking out something new. and doing what you can to evolve your collecting sensibility.
Yeah, man.
I love
Joe made a good point. When he was talking about how when we first look at modern baseball, we're kind of like, why is this? This seems like it's kind of cheap. Like it's not as expensive. When I came over from being used to Patrick Mahomes prices, and then I see, I think of like Patrick Mahomes' best card. And if I were to look at like the equivalent of Bobby Witt, now these are not the same guys. Patrick's way further in his career, way more accomplished. But even, a couple years ago, how high the modern football prices were, or we look at modern basketball and we look at how high Luka cards are, or how high, Luka's not ever won a championship, or Zion and Ja, how crazy, how high all that got. And then, I looked at a lot of this to get Bobby Witt's best cards, and I'm like, I feel kind of like a stranger coming into this world, and it seems like the prices are so low. And I don't know exactly why that is. I guess obviously modern baseball guys are pretty hardcore, but they're a small little subculture when it comes to kind of the whole scheme of the hobby.
What I loved, Sean, is when you said a few minutes back now that, you feel reinvigorated and I think that's a message that I'd like to send out there to anyone listening or watching. I mean, and a lot of you already, you do this already, but if you don't, I just find, Sean, like there's so many different lanes you can go down in the hobby. There's so many opportunities to find something new to collect, and even as a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 year veteran, hobbyist, we can still find new things that invigorate us again, whether it's a new player, a star player coming to your favorite team, your favorite local team, or whatever it might be. There's always that ability. When was the last time for you, Sean, that you had that feeling of being reinvigorated again? And I want to take a guess at my own answer here. Was it Patrick Mahomes, back in 2017-18? Was that your first kind of being reinvigorated into the hobby?
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think, and again, it feels like that. Reinvigoration would be a great term, because we get this quarterback that I fall in love with, he's the best thing to happen to Kansas City. So now I have to learn all about his cards, and so when I first started buying his cards really wasn't until 2018, mid 2018, late 2018. So, his rookie year was 2017. He didn't play. We didn't know a lot about him. But, I wish I would have known then what cards to get. I didn't have a clue what a National Treasures RPA was, or a Prism Gold rookie was, back when they were going for $1,000, and now they're what, $200K to $500K. So yeah, doing the due diligence, and that's why, when I got a few Bobby Witt cards, I knew, I likely am not going to just go crazy and buy 100 different cards, but I want some that are special that I can hold on to and enjoy while I watch his career. So yeah, I mean, that was, the toughest thing in modern baseball for me to learn initially, which if you're not a modern baseball person and you're wanting to know a little bit more about it, is understanding how the first cards work versus the rookie cards, and then everything in between that, and then everything after the rookie card. So, is
that like the first Bowman thing?
Yeah. So the first Bowman traditionally, that would be, Jeremy, similar to like the MJ XRC, the 101, the Star 101. Yeah. So that's going to be your first card, but it's not considered your rookie card. That's their first. They're a prospect card. But so those have a big following, but they also have, similar to the argument with the 86 Fleer and the Star 101, these guys back and forth on. I mean, some guys are only Bowman first. Some guys are only true rookie. And they'll bicker and go back. They'll never come to an agreement. And then there's people like me that I actually value both of them. I think it's similar to the Star 101. I want the guy's first card. I think it's important to have his very first card, but I understand a rookie is a rookie, and you obviously want the rookie as well.
To state the obvious, I guess, and I know you know this, the Star 101 isn't a prospect card though, because he's already playing for the Bulls and already a known factor. But I want to ask you about Mahomes now. Well, not ask you, I just want to get your thoughts on this. Mahomes, okay, Kansas City is a small market relative to other professional sports franchises in the NFL and Major League Baseball. But Patrick Mahomes has transcended the small market because he's just that good. But Bobby Witt Jr. maybe hasn't yet, so you're able to get into his cards more affordably. And maybe you're in at an earlier time, so you're going to, be able to reap better financial rewards down the line if that's something that you're into. But can you speak to that sort of situation where Mahomes has transcended the small market and Bobby Witt maybe hasn't, even though he's a player that I've heard a lot about over the past year, 2 years?
Yeah. Well, I think, when I think about it, obviously the NFL is huge now compared to Major League Baseball. Now, Major League Baseball still has a ton of fans. They sell more tickets than any other sport because there's just so many games. So people are it's still the nostalgia of the original national pastime. People still do love baseball. But in the collecting world, we obviously see the hardcore basketball people, football people, vintage baseball. And I've always felt like, modern baseball, what it's really lacking is the MLB doing a good job of promoting its stars and getting the stars out there. It just seems like you don't hear as much about these great players when it comes to like national media and them marketing. I mean, you look at Patrick Mahomes. This guy is on every commercial. Every time you watch a football game, he's on some kind of commercial. Obviously, his stardom has played a big role in that. But, you look at Bobby Witt, and even this year, they voted him as the third Major League Baseball network put him at number 3 out of all their players behind Shohei and Aaron Judge. But you don't hear a lot about him unless you're following, someone from Kansas City, or whatever. But, in the national media, you're not hearing about these stars as much as you are these other big stars from other sports. So I don't think there's a way that Bobby Witt ever becomes, equal to Patrick Mahomes. But I think in the modern baseball world, he's still got a lot of people that don't know about him. So,
well, what we do know about is Paul Skenes right now.
Right.
And that debut patch card from Topps is for sale right now in the Fanatics Collect Premier Auction, ending 2 Thursdays from now. That thing, last I checked earlier today, was up to $660,000. That's with the buyer's premium, so $550 plus 20%. $660,000, Sean and Joe. I mean, you follow these things. You're a baseball, you're a fan of sport, maybe not hockey, but you're a fan of sport. What are your thoughts? Let's start with Joe, then we'll ask you, Sean. What are your thoughts, Joe, on this Paul Skenes debut patch? I put a question up on my Instagram story the other day, like, what's it going to sell for and who's buying it? I had answers from Paul Skenes himself to Kerry Wood to, a few other just sort of funny ones, of course. Answers from amounts that have already been surpassed up to $1.5 million. I don't know where this thing's going to end. I don't know who's bidding on it. It'll be interesting to find out if that becomes public information down the road. But Joe, what are your thoughts on this Paul Skenes debut patch situation?
Yeah, well, before I get into the Skenes, I just kind of wanted to respond quickly to what Sean was saying about baseball and the marketing. And it's curious because I love baseball. I've always loved baseball. Baseball was my primary sport, and yet I do not. And some of it might connect to just being, a little. The Oakland A's situation hasn't been the easiest one, but I wonder how much the modern culture with internet and quick satisfaction of, speed and, even baseball having to really change the rules to make the games go a little bit faster, I wonder about that in relation to the hobby and even just the overall appeal of where baseball is going. That said, it's a beautiful game. The Ohtani madness coming in definitely has breathed enthusiasm into not just the sport but the hobby as well. And with the Skenes thing, I mean, that guy is a hoss. I mean, I did a little pitching in my day. Look at that guy's legs. I mean, he is generating so much power. And so if you appreciate kind of the mechanics of a pitcher, you can't help but appreciate him. But I do find it incredibly risky, just knowing all the things that can go wrong with a pitcher's body, and even what the ceiling might be if he does become I mean, the stature of a Nolan Ryan, which is saying a lot. Imagine 20 years of roughly 300 strikeouts, and then you're in a conversation with the all-time greats. So it's hard for me personally to fathom it, but I think it's great for the hobby. I think it's great that there is someone that people are idolizing, and that has maybe a little pizzazz to their aura. Whether it's his girlfriend or his look, his kind of his vibe. So I'm excited for it, and I'll root for somebody that wants that card to get it. And I'll, like everyone else, I'll read the stories and probably pass myself on getting a Skenes card anytime soon. But I'll live vicariously.
What do you make of all this, the debut patch and everything else with Skenes, Sean?
Well, I think it's cool. Anytime there's a big sale in the hobby, I'm here for it. It's, to me, I agree with Joe, it's very risky. And then when I look back at the history of baseball, pitchers are not the most collected, by any means. So when I think about the way that just the hobby esteems the home run hitters, look at like Greg Maddux. Who collects Greg Maddux cards? And he's like, I mean, there's nobody. Will Paul Skenes end up like Greg Maddux? Probably not. And so obviously Greg played at an interesting time where his cards were, 87 tops but even then there's not a lot of hardcore Greg Maddux fans.
What about Randy Johnson? Are there Randy Johnson like another guy who is top of his game? Is he a player that is widely? I don't ever see people flexing Randy Johnson cards on Instagram.
Right. Well, and that's a good point. Randy Johnson was so dominant, and yet he played in the same era as Ken Griffey Jr. And there's tons of Ken Griffey Jr. collectors out there. Not a lot of Randy Johnson collectors, and very dominant, big, 6'10" pitcher. So we're looking at a different type of card, a 1-of-1 major league. That's potentially his best card. So somebody may want it and hold it. I think that's awesome. But when it comes to just collecting pitchers, that's just never been it. You got Sandy Koufax, you got Christy Mathewson, some of the old dogs. But historically, it's the guy swinging the bat that people want. So,
yeah, that's so. Dan says, "Isn't Paul Skenes just Steven Strasburg all over again?" I mean, that's what comes to. I wrote it down. I have written down on my little pad here, Strasburg, because that's what I fear for people that are putting tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars or just too much money into Paul Skenes right now. Is he going to be the next? Because I remember when I think it was Strasburg's like Superfractor first came out. What year was that? What was that? 2011, 12, 13. Sold for close to $20,000. Back then, the amount of surprise or just shock that you would have for a card selling for $20,000 is the same amount of shock we have now for cards selling for $1 million. I'm as shocked now at $1 million as I was then for 20, right? That's how crazy the hobby has gotten. And that's the risk. Like Dan says, isn't he? Well, we don't know yet, but is he going to be? I mean, if people aren't putting big money into Roger Clemens, and someone also called out my favorite, JH calls out Pedro here, another one, it's so risky.
And I'm not too familiar with the rookie class, but it brings to mind for me also kind of the intersection between the Topps debut issue, right, which is something kind of brand new, kind of seminal, and is captivating along with the Skenes persona. But not that I'm talking about plays, because I can't keep track of the baseball prospects. That's one of the reasons I stay out of there, is because it's such a steep level year after year of who's coming in the rookie class. But there's probably somebody out there that's a sneaky play for a Topps debut card that we're not talking about right now that could end up, amplifying in value over time, precisely because this is, the seminal release, if you will, of this really cool concept that, kudos to Topps for that one.
Yeah. Okay, let's do some comments, guys, and then we're going to bring Leighton on for a visit. First of all, guys, Rage is in the building. What's up, Rage? Mark Santucci, Sean, do you have any cards of Len Dawson? That's a quick yes or no, Sean.
Yes, I do.
He does, Mark. Mojo Sports, who was here a while ago, appreciate that comment from Jay to drop some likes on the stream. Dan said Bobby Witt Jr. being both a hobby hero and a hobby member is an amazing story. That's always more fun. Good evening to you, Stukes. Welcome. Happy Saturday to you, Chris, from CRT Sports Cards, guys. Check out his YouTube channel. Check out Stukes' YouTube channel as well, everybody. Do us the favor. Found Treasures. What's going on? Bob Boozle's the guy that plays video games before reading the manual. No education for him going into a new collecting lane. Stukes says it reinvigorated me every time I find something I haven't seen before for cards or memorabilia. That's a lot of fun for sure. Teapot says, yeah, Mahomes prices versus baseball prices just don't compare. That's for sure. Dan says the real tragedy of modern baseball is the devaluation of anything post or past a rookie card. Yeah, I think that goes for a lot of sport outside of some very rare, low numbered inserts and parallel sort of thing. I think that's very true. Stu says, I like the Bobby Witt Jr.'s future in baseball, possibly 3,000 hits, 400 to 500 home runs. Ways to go for that, but you never know. That 70s card show visiting us from X says millionaires can't be bothered to promote. What's up, Skeppy? Welcome to the show. Dave Snyder back in the house. I haven't seen Dave Snyder for quite some time. That 70 says baseball is regional, NFL is national. That's a good comment right there too. I think that makes sense. And then he goes on to say, where will the Skenes card end up? 1,200 in 2 years. I mean, I think that's drastic, but you just never know. We're at 660K right now. Are we coming down to 1,200? You never know. You never know. Stukes here says Skenes needs 5 good years to start his career without an arm injury. Otherwise, he could be another Vita Blue or Dwight Gooden. Is it Vita or Vita? Vita?
Vita.
Thank you. JH, Paul Skenes isn't as popular as his Livy is. Not true with Patty and his girl. Laura says, is the Skenes patch card now more popular than Skenes himself? I think a case can be made for that. Orlando says debut patch cards will be the player's best card in the future. I don't think that. I think that's quite reasonable. Nick Chen says, what's the chance Skenes buys his own patch card? That would be betting on yourself. I'd love to see it. Dan says people don't collect Whitey Ford, Steve Carlton, or Ferguson Jenkins. Pretty true, unless you're doing that Hall of Fame set run. But Leighton, when you come on, can you speak to that? I want to get you to speak that when you come on in the call. I'm going to leave that one starred. Mookie Chilson says Nolan Ryan remains a hobby darling, and I like Tom. Terrific. Eric Young, PC's Greg Maddox. Awesome. Love to hear it. Laura says King Griffey Jr. played every day. Randy Johnson, not so much. That is a bit of a difference as well. Uno Moss, Skenes is probably buying that card himself. Teapot says the Strasbourg comparison is a fair one. It is scary. Yes, it is. I agree, Teapot. And Soccer Card says, nice Randy. There's a nice Randy Johnson 1/1 1997 Flair Showcase in Golden's extended bidding right now.
Keep us updated. I'd like to hear what something like that goes for.
Yeah. Hey, Soccer Cards, can you let us know what the bidding is at on that? That would be great to hear for sure. Stukes goes on to say, hard to pick one player too. Mike Trout, for instance, was selected after Kyle Gibson. Yeah, if we're redrafting, it's another story. Mr. Michael Hammond, what's up, Ham? At one of my local shows, there were multiple young players from the Phillies and Blue Jays that were buying cards at the show yesterday. That's very cool. Joe knows Vida for sure. Dave Snyder says the scary thing is all high-end prospect cards are just one injury away from dollar bucks. That's like the most that is like hobby 101 right there. You need to be aware of that. And that has, I got to say, to Dave Snyder and everyone, that guides my collecting so much. I might stick to this comment more than anything in my own collecting over the past, say, 10 years. Tears for Wemby, says Bomboozle. What's up, Curmudgeon? Good to see ya. Welcome to the show. Mike Good thinks Paul Skenes has better mechanics. Very important. Hodges, welcome to the show. Like the video. I appreciate it, Hodges. All right, guys. Lots of comments there. Joe, Sean, if there's anything you wanted to mention about anything that I just ran through, note it. We're going to bring on Leighton, and then Leighton's going to leave after about half an hour. Sean, you'll stay on, but let's bring on Leighton. You get to come on now, Leighton. And guys, remember, we didn't have Leighton last week. He was in a bad car accident. Let's just welcome him with open arms, guys. Let's give welcome back to the show, Leighton. It's so happy to have you back, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Really grateful to be here. What's up, Jeremy? What's going on, Joe? How are you, Sean?
Hey, Leighton. What's up, man?
Not too much. I really appreciate all the well wishes. But let's get down to business, Jeremy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the first one, Leighton, was the comment that Dan made. I know you and Dan are close friends. What do you think about this comment? Because I mean, it rings true to me outside of, collecting the rookie card for set registries or Hall of Fame rookie collecting. But do you know, are people doing the Whitey Ford run or the Steve Carlton run or the Fergie Jenkins run? What are your thoughts on the comment and just how that, the collectability of non-top tier Hall of Famers?
So great comment by Dan. Interesting question, Jeremy. I don't quite agree with Dan in the sense of saying definitively that people don't collect Whitey Ford, Steve Carlton, and Fergie Jenkins is incorrect. What I think he meant to say was, for maybe every one person that might be collecting Whitey Ford, for every one person that's collecting Steve Carlton or Fergie, there might be 25 to 150 people that are collecting Mantle. Or if you want to keep it to pictures, there's 100 Koufax collectors for every one Carlton. So what I would like to ask the community is, how far off am I? I don't know. I'm just guessing. So I don't agree with Dan, but I see his point. And the way I would rephrase it or reframe it is that those folks, as great as they were, Koufax wasn't 100 times better, but yet there might be 100 Koufax collectors for every one Carlton collector. What do you guys think?
I think those ratios are good starting points, but it's tough to say. Sean, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think Leighton is right, and I do, and Dan, in a sense, is right. When you talk about the hobby as a whole, if you're kind of looking at the bigger picture, those guys, there's not a ton of guys collecting Steve Carlton. But then when you kind of dial it down into the regional stuff, like there's not a lot of guys that are collecting Ferguson Jenkins, but there's probably some guys in, Chicago that are collecting him, that love him from back then. Different regional guys that, there's guys in Kansas City that are hardcore, like we talked about earlier, Lynn Dawson collectors, that they're, but they're not, they're not kind of hobby wide when it comes to collecting them. So, same thing when you look at different stars. Well, here's a good example. I may collect Ken Griffey Jr. and not be a Mariners fan or a Reds fan. And so it takes someone who's going to be like a Mickey Mantle. You may have guys that are hardcore, lifelong Brooklyn Dodgers fans, but they'll collect Mickey, and then they may dial it down to, Tommy Lasorda and other guys from the Dodgers. But yeah, I think both what they're both saying makes sense.
What about you, Joe? What do you think about this line of thought?
Well, when eBay came along, I feel like a lot of the traditional baseball cards that I was interested in just became so much more accessible. So, for instance, growing up, Campy Campaneris was one of my favorite players, and if I depended on the local card shops or opening packs, there was only so many I could get. But once eBay came along, it didn't take me that long, and it didn't cost that much to essentially fill out the complete run of Campaneris from 65, I believe, through 83, 82. Anyway, what I'm saying, I guess, is that I think it reminds me of that comment about the regional aspect of baseball. I think there are a lot of people that collect them, but particularly in certain years, it just doesn't take that much to acquire a complete run. Now, if you want PSA 10 and everything, that might be a slightly different story. And then you get into, more, auto mem cards, if you're going to start to bring in, maybe some National Treasures or Flawless or something like that, or, Topps Dynasty, I guess, those kinds of things. So there are avenues to pursue later on down the road. But I don't know. I think for those smaller names, and to me, Steve Carlton is a huge name. I mean, in the 70s, and early 80s, Steve Carlton was a force. But and probably in Philadelphia, there's a lot of people with really beautiful Steve Carlton collections. But I just don't think they have quite the same buzz. The kind of we live in kind of a goat idolatry kind of time, and so Mickey Mantle still has the buzz whether you live in Philadelphia or Hoboken. So I just think it's a little easier if you're a vintage collector to fill out your punch list.
You kind of all this talk about you went to Mantle and talking about how people do gravitate to some of those biggest names. It made me smirk when I was thinking about it. Kind of relates a little bit to the old Pareto principle that we've talked about here on the show before with deep value. People do tend to go there because we don't see a lot of people collecting, like we've said, Carlton or Fisk or Brett and Yount, 75 Topps brothers and rookie down there, Johnny Bench. I don't see a lot of that, but doesn't mean that people aren't collecting them. I think Sean, you said, regionally they do it. And then, there's still people putting the sets together all the time, doing their Topps run, and they do need these cards. So I think a big piece of it too is that there's just not a lot of modern cards that are really rare. These are very easy to find cards. The scarcity comes as far as condition goes versus the cards themselves. And then I think about, like, what do I very lightly collect Pee Wee Reese, a little bit of Stan Musial, a little bit of Warren Spahn. Am I in the minority there, or are there other people that like to? And Leighton knows, especially on the Pee Wee Reese side of things, because he gifted me a beautiful card at one point, and I just love collecting those cards because, number one, they're so much more affordable, and those players still have histories that are interesting to learn about. Read the back of the cards, and the cards are beautiful. They're just those late 40s, early 50s cards, whether it's the Leaf Bowmans or the early 50 Bowmans. I love those as well, like the 50s, the 51s, the 52s. Such nice cards back then. Guys, I want to do a few comments here because we've had quite a few. Dave Kaplan said, one injury or one scandal can hurt a player. That's for sure. Dave Snyder says also poor performance like Connor Bedard or lack of team chemistry can suck value away. Very true. Dave Kaplan, ultra modern is the most dangerous game. I agree with that comment. Right here, Larry says, I collect Ford and Carlton and Phil Koufax to fund because then they're liquid and they always sell. Makes sense. And Michael says, in other words, No two collectors are alike. I love that way of thinking. It is so true. It's what makes the hobby super interesting. And then Leighton, wanted just a couple of notes to you here personally. Nick Chen says, welcome back, Leighton. Hope you are well. Curmudgeon, hope you're feeling well as well. And Mike Good says, Leighton, we've never met, but I'm glad you're okay. And I hope each day gets better and better, as Leighton recovers from the serious car accident. So all that out of the way, I'd like to, Leighton, obviously respond to those messages of well wishes, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on the community or the population of people relative to maybe the Mantles, and then relative to some of the other players we've been talking about, the collect guys like Spawn and Musial and Pee Wee Reese, who aren't top tier Hall of Famers, but still very important.
I mean, I don't know. There's a lot in there, and my brain's still not fully functioning. So I would say this only because you mentioned Warren Spahn. I had such an interesting thing happen today at the Philly show with Warren Spahn. I'm going to describe this collector to you. So I have this ungraded deal out from the 1950s. It's $15,000. It's really nice cards. I don't need to get into it. I'm not trying to sell it here on the show. So the guy says to me, and I'm being honest, a month ago, if the guy says to me what I'm about to share with you, I probably would have said no. He goes, would you sell one card out of this group? And I'm thinking, do you need one to complete your set? Which would have been logical to me. And he said, no, I'm trying to collect, I think, a Hall of Famer from every year in 7 or higher from the 50s or 60s. And I go, well, does it matter what Hall of Famer? And he's like, well, ones I can afford. And I laugh with him. And so we have a 58 Spawn. And I'll be honest, I didn't think it was going to 7. I thought it was a 6. I told him it was that. I don't know. He's telling me why it's okay. I give him a fair deal. He's like, you sure it's okay to break up the collection? I'm like, break up the collection? I've already been breaking up the collection. This is a piece of the collection. So we had a good laugh. And so, once again, I appreciate all the well wishes, very much so, from the hobby in general. And it really is reframed. As you've asked me, Jeremy, personally offline, is it going to last forever? I really hope it does. Because it's a nice way to live, being present and grateful for every moment and every day. And so I'm being honest, I thought I could make the guy show and make him happy versus being a stickler like I probably would have been a month ago and said, I'm sorry, I already did the numbers. I don't need to take out a Warren Spahn. It wasn't that hard to figure out. And the guy was really happy. So what I'm saying is he collecting Warren Spahn? Not really. But he's not only going for a mantle from every year. And I'll be honest, I had never heard of someone doing that before. So someone just said a few minutes ago, and it's really a great, very astute comment. I don't know that any two collectors are alike because not only of personal taste, but also because of budget. And this gentleman just proved that. What if someone else was like, I only need a 3? Great. His journey's going to be a lot cheaper. And of course, there's some people who might require a 9 from every year. And I just found it interesting. And of course, trying to find enjoyment out of everything, candidly.
Well, my biggest takeaway from all that, Leighton, I hope everyone else picked up on this, especially people who will be at the Philly show tomorrow, is that Leighton might be softening up a little bit. If you're looking for some cards, you might want to go visit his booth at the Philly show tomorrow.
Big sale. Big sale.
Listen, I'm usually a pretty good poker player, but let me tell you something. When someone has either a same or similar experience, I got to imagine I'm not alone. I've certainly been reading a lot and conferring with others. Yeah, I would tell you, I'd probably go up to those people and ask for, some flexibility in pricing. My hunch or my gut tells me you might get a little bit better treatment than usual.
Right on. I love it. I love it, man. I mean, it's, it's a nice state of mind that you're in. It's unfortunate what it took to get you there, but hey, it's somewhat of a wake-up call. And, sometimes these things actually can save your life down the road because you're going to be a little bit more aware on the highway, whatever it is. I want Rage says it's crazy about all the pictures and no one mentioned Tom Glavine. Dude had ice in his veins. Jeff McMahon is a huge George Brett collector. Right. Yeah. There you go, Sean. Kansas City. Midlife Craig says he agrees with me. He loves guys like Spawn and Reese. Me too. Big time. And then Stukes gives us this guy. This is really insightful. On the PSA set registry, there are 571 people doing the Mickey Mantle basic set. Whitey Ford and Steve Carlton, 85 and 73 respectively. So what is that? Like 15% or so of the amount of Mantle. So that's like, what's that? 7-8 to 1 type of thing, 6-7-8 to 1, whatever it is, Leighton. So yeah, I mean, it might not be 100 to 1, and that's only what we see on the set registry. But I think that's the PSA set registry might be a decent indication of those ratios, perhaps.
I think it's whoever brought that comment to our attention. I was kind of thinking that I would go later on to investigate. That's a great place to start. It's not going to be exact, but if it's 7 or 8 to 1, do I actually think it's 12 times that and 100 more people collect Mantle cards? It still might be because you're only accounting for graded. So I have no idea, but it's certainly interesting conjecture and makes for a fun discussion.
Right on. Joe, you got anything to jump in with?
Yeah, no, I mean, we've talked about this before, kind of like, what players, quote unquote, stand the test of time. And as each generation kind of, moves in, it seems as though, like, I never saw, Walter Johnson pitch or Ty Cobb hit. But, you see you hear the stories, you see some weird, old, film, that's been touched up. Looks like they're playing at 1.5 speed, so it's like, it's hard to tell, like, were they really that good? But obviously they were good in their time. And so their legend sort of transcends. Then you get a little closer to our times, and Jackie Robinson stealing home, right, Sean? Like you see some real, both connection to athletes that you can actually go, oh, wow, Jackie wasn't he like an Olympic sprinter too? He was definitely running at UCLA. And then you also have the cultural influence. So I just think it's kind of interesting to see how over time people will remember. I always appreciate when younger folks do have a strong knowledge of the game. But I think over time, it's probably going to get, it's just going to consolidate down more and more to the truly sort of historical figures, which doesn't mean that there's not people collecting those other cards. But I don't know in 30 years how many Fergie Jenkins collectors there's going to be.
Well, he does have the being from Canada thing going for him. So there's, not a lot of Canadian baseball players that in the majors. There's some for sure. So he'll always have a bit of a base. And he was a mainstay at the Sport Card Expo in Toronto for several years with his foundation. He'd be there signing autographs at his booth. I remember I recorded a video one time, probably in 2006 or 7 at the Expo. And, on a camcorder sort of thing. And as I was processing that video, later on, I could hear in the background on the PA system saying Fergie Jenkins signing autographs in his booth right now. So that was, just a little tidbit on Fergie Jenkins right there. Baseball Card Curmudgeon says one reason why you don't see it is because most veteran collectors have all the cards they want of 1965 to 95 players, especially players from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They aren't traded much, but are held. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Sean, what are you thinking as you listen to all this and process it?
Yeah, no, I like what both guys, Joe and Leighton, shared. A lot of people wouldn't know that I'm a Ken Griffey Senior super collector, but I have all the cards I need. So I literally have every single card that Ken Griffey Senior ever appeared on. And there's actually some very weird oddball cards where, he's got cards that are a round top that was on an ice cream, little quart ice cream jug. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so, I like what both of those guys shared. Talking about Warren Spahn, I was thinking about, I set up at a card show in Kansas City a couple years ago, 2 different times in a row. And there is a Warren Spahn super collector in Kansas City. And this guy doesn't touch anybody else's cards. It's only Warren Spahn. And it's kind of weird because I was like, what interests you being a guy in your late 30s? How did you connect to Warren Spahn? And I feel like his grandfather collected him or had some kind of personal experience with him, and then passed that love for that player onto him. And so, at the time, this was like 2021. You know, I've got some Mantle, Hank Aaron, Jackie Robinson in the case, but then I've got like Zion, Ja, Luca, you know, all these cards. And this guy comes up and he's like, man, I'm just looking at your case and I'm not seeing any. Do you have any Warren Spahn like under the table? And the funny thing is the guy came back the next time too. You know, it's like a couple months later. Were you able to secure any Warren Spahn cards? I'm like, what are you looking for? And I mean, he knew exactly. He had 2 or 3 cards that he was wanting to upgrade. But you know, you get guys like that are passionate about whoever it is for whatever reason, and that's what makes the hobby so cool. You know, you've got the crossover guys that are just all across the board. We all know Hank Aaron. We all know Willie Mays. We all know Ken Griffey Jr., Michael Jordan. Those guys kind of transcend all the little micro areas in the hobby. And then you get people dialing down to, you know, I have a decent little Lou Brock collection.
I just wrote Lou Brock's name down, like literally. It's right there, Lou Brock. I just wrote it down because I wanted to mention Lou Brock. I'm like, no one collects Lou Brock. Please continue though. Maybe
Lou Brock was Ricky Henderson before Ricky Henderson, and you know, I remember one of the first cards I got of his was like a early 1970 Lou Brock, and it was when he first went over to the Cardinals from the Cubs, and he was a St. Louis guy, not far from Kansas City, but we knew Lou Brock as being the stolen base king prior to Ricky Henderson. And then, Ricky kind of took that over and you didn't hear as much about Lou Brock, but I think some of his cards are super cool looking. And I mean, those are like, you can get those for a fraction of, his cards are so cheap. But that's what makes the hobby fun. You find little guys that you connect with. I have no reason really to like Lou Brock other than some memories I had as a kid, but that was enough to get me excited about, I probably have 10 or 15 of his cards. So
very nice. That's pretty cool. I love the story about the Spawn collector. I have to wonder, like if he's a Spawn super collector, like how long does it take to get them all? There's not, it's not like there's a million different rare parallels and insert, unless he's doing modern, stuff as well. Interesting. Mark Santucci wants to know, Sean, which do you like better for Griffey Senior, the 74 or the 75?
I like the 74 actually better.
Yeah. I like both. I like the looks of both sets. Bob Boozle, show me the Spawns. I love that.
The Spawns under the table.
Dan says Warren Spahn is American hero, most decorated World War II veteran to play in the MLB. 2 Purple Hearts. I love that. I love that about a player. Carlos says Greg Maddux has 355 wins and nobody cares. Well, not nobody, but I think few people probably care in the hobby. Bob Boozle says I wear a trench coat disguised at the car shop when I buy Robin Yount cards. And Carlos says Paul Skenes at 650K and will never come close to 355 wins. Which I think is maybe possible that he won't, because that's just kind of the way load management and that goes nowadays, right? So, all right, interesting stuff, everybody. Great comments. Thank you, everybody, so far for those. Leighton, anything else you'd like to mention? Or
yes, I have a question for Sean.
Please.
So, Sean, do you remember a post about a year ago? I think it's your account where you were like talking about this 52 Topps die cut mantle.
Yes.
That sold for 7,200. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And so I have 2 questions. It's really more for
everybody.
I
actually made a t-shirt about that.
I know. Too. I kind of want one. I'm excited to get it. Hopefully you still have it in stock. So first, the price of 7,200 certainly surprised me. And I guess where I'm coming from is, for that price, being $7,200, although it's, I guess, a Mickey Mantle rookie, it's certainly just a piece of one. I would just buy other cards. I might even buy a new couch. I don't know. I wouldn't buy a deformed, right? When I say deformed, I'm just saying it's not what I think of as an authentic copy of a card. So I guess it begs the question, how many of us out there would actually be willing to spend 4 figures, so call $1,000 or more, for a die cut version of an iconic card. And where my brain went, even though it's obviously not smart, you can theoretically buy, I just think it would be a fun experiment. My brain is going to, like, once again, been through a lot recently, right? Why not buy an 86 Fleer, like a really ugly one, or an authentic Jordan, and then now we can produce a new t-shirt.
Yeah,
right? It's like, die cut iconic cards 2.0, right? There's piggy banks, there's all sorts of crazy cards. This is our art. So it's a little strange to do it in this way, but joking aside, who out there would be willing to buy a die cut version of an iconic card for over $1,000? And I myself, as much as I love cards and I want to get an iconic, Honus Wagner, I know you're not going to get for $7,200. I just think at some point there's a line in the sand of what you're willing to accept for an authentic. And I think there might be one I'd be willing to accept in my collection because I think it actually looks like a piece of art. But I got to tell you, I don't think I'm going to be the guy to start a registry for the die-cut authentic iconic cards of all time. But I want to know, is there someone out there tonight who thinks they might? That's all I got.
Well, I think about that Honus Wagner. You brought up Honus Wagner. The one that sold a couple years ago, and I think it was it half a million?
About half, maybe 40%. It was on a diet during that period.
That's right, yeah, and it's half the card, and it was half price. So I mean, actually probably not even quite, probably an eighth of the price, but yeah, that card is. I'm actually looking at it right now. In fact, that Honus Wagner is 2 on the PSA. It was the second ever graded card. That half I call it the half-eaten Wagner. Yeah, that's serial number 000000002. And it'd be cool if someone ever found the other half, and you could buy both halves and just don't take them out of the slab, but just put one slab on top of the other one, and they match up perfectly.
I got to show you guys. So speaking of like half-eaten cards, so I don't know if you guys have seen here. I'll just spotlight this quickly. If you guys ever saw this card before, but this is the half a Gretzky card that is owned by Instagram account Bo Sports Cards, and he loves this card in his collection, and he put out a bounty. I think it was tongue in cheek, but he put out a bounty. If anyone knows where the other half is of this card is, I'm going to pay you a finder's fee, right? As if it's still out there. But talk about a die cut, right? Half die cut right there on a 79 OPG Gretzky, and he loves the card in his collection. So Leighton, to your question, I think there are people that would collect some of those cards. I know I would be willing to, if the price was right and it was the right player and the rest of the card looked nice enough and it was slabbed authentic, I'd be happy with that personally. But of course, that would be a novelty holding for me. Not like, I don't know if I would keep it in my Hall of Fame rookie box. Maybe I would if it's a Hall of Fame rookie. So Joe, you want to chime in? Then we're gonna guest swap from Leighton over to Darryl Garner, Dr. Collectible. We're gonna bring him on in a couple minutes. But Joe, do you want to address Leighton's question first?
Yeah, I mean, I'm amused by the trajectory of this conversation, and I think facetiously this could be a new sports card influencing moment here. Like find your beater. Find your high-end Grail beaters, and when we say beaters, but yeah, through the years, I've had torn and mangled cards that I've had a great deal of affection for. They haven't always been of stars, but occasionally, handled by child or even just straight up ripped, Clementes and this, that, and the other. This is my Grail card here. It's not a real one. It's a reprint, obviously, but I would take any piece of this as a relic of what I consider to be, a top 10 card in the hobby, a high number leaf Satchel Leroy Page. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to say before Leighton leaves, Leighton, I'm sure I'm not alone in saying this. Your IG reel touched me and was meaningful in terms of experiencing vicariously, I think, your renewed awareness of just how precious life is. And I just want to thank you for that because it impacted me in both an emotional way, but also in I think a very positive mental health way. So thank you for that.
Very
Well,
nice,
I
Joe.
appreciate being back on the show with you guys. This was a lot of fun. And now I'm legitimately thinking about what are my top 10 cards I'd like to acquire and start cutting up and starting a die cut new t-shirt business.
Yeah.
Well, Matthew, 1956 Tops guy, also glad to have you back, Leighton. So nice, and thank you, Matthew. Joe, great comments. When I watched Leighton's reel, I was literally, I had a Kleenex in my hand because it was very touching and kind of eye-opening. And so, yeah, Leighton, great to have you back, buddy. And we'll see you back next Saturday as well if you're free. So thank you for everything, my friend.
Thank all of you guys. I really appreciate everything. Talk to you soon.
Take care, buddy.
You
Take
mean.
care. I like this comment from Bob Boozle. Beaters are keepers. Joe, you've used the word beaters for cards more like to me, a beater was a car that was a beater. And then I think you might have been the first person to introduce me to the term as far as sports cards goes. Bob Boozle is already there. He was ahead of me in that as far as that word goes. But I do like thinking about it. You know, beaters are keepers. Yeah, maybe because they're harder to move. I don't know, but
hey, you know what? Before I forget, too, I wanted to ask Sean. You know, Sean, you produced some of my favorite IG posts, and I haven't seen you doing it much lately, man. So, like, are you on a hiatus, or can we look forward to you doing both sometimes the serious stuff, but then sometimes like just the most hilarious comedy, creative stuff that usually has a point underlying it that is connected to the current state of the hobby. But what's up, man? Are we going to get any more of your drops?
For sure. Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Joe. You know, I actually have a couple cards that I'm planning on doing some more serious kind of mini documentary type stuff on that not going to share about yet, but I've got a couple ideas for some things. Yeah, I'll definitely be going back into I think what happens is in the winter, I go kind of in hibernation mode, and then I've just had some different stuff with career, so things have been really busy. But you expect some more stuff soon, for sure.
nice.
Looking forward to it.
And if you're watching on Instagram right now, come on over to YouTube. That's where the action's at. Inspired Sports Cards. I see your comments. Come on over to YouTube. Much easier. I can't integrate them into the show from IG, but I certainly can on YouTube. There's a link in my bio to that. All right, guys, we're going to bring out our next guest of the night. But before we do, I just want to shout out one of the channel partners here, guys. I want to shout out Mint Inc. Again, Mint Inc. out of Toronto. Check out Mint Inc., leading hobby brand in Canada, mintink.ca for your hobby needs. If you're in Canada, check out my friends at Mint Inc. Help them out as they help us out here. All right, Sean, Joe, chat. We're going to bring out Darryl. You ready to come on? Give me thumbs up. Give me he's ready to come. All right, guys, please welcome, give a warm welcome, a Sports Cards Live welcome to Darryl Garner, Dr. Collectible. Darryl, welcome to Sports Cards Live, my friend. How are you?
It's nice in here, man. It's pretty beautiful in here, man. I'm glad to be on, man. My first time. You know how we rock, so you know I'm just happy to be on. First off, I heard we talking about them pictures. Mr. Johnson back there.
Okay.
You know we got some Randy Johnson, you know what I'm saying? We got some Clemens, you know. We got some Roger Clemens. I heard some talk about the pictures, so I have to show them some love.
Nice. Well, listen, just and for the audience and everybody. So you and I think we first met at I think it was a Burbank, maybe the first or second Burbank show. I remember meeting you kind of in the downstairs area when it was on 2 levels. We had a very short interaction there, but we've met several times. We've been to several shows together. And but my favorite moment with you, Darryl, was, I think it was, God, where were we? Was it the Van City Card Show in Vancouver, where we were at an eBay sponsored event, and you and I ended up standing together and talking just one-on-one for like half an hour. And to me, that was when I got to know the person behind the Dr. Collectible brand. When I feel like I really got to say, got to say to myself after, I like this guy. Like this is a nice human being, very friendly, very positive in your outlook on things. And I was just glad that I had the opportunity to meet you and have that conversation versus just knowing you from Instagram, let's say. And so, yeah, I thought that was a great introduction for you and I. And since then, I thought, you know what? I want to get this guy on the show. I want to introduce him to the Sports Cards Live audience. Maybe they can get to know you a little bit through this appearance right now, the same way that I did. But I also want to say hi to Joe. Say hi to Sean. Guys, say hi to the doc.
Hey guys, what's up, man?
Welcome, Doc. Good to have you in here.
Thank you.
Right on. Thank you.
I like the squares, man. I got a Brady Bunch feel going on, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's dope. I love your
Squares,
setup.
right? Hollywood Squares. Well, and I want to 1956 Tops guy Matthew. I met Darryl at the short-lived Bleecker location in Santa Monica at a collector showcase event. Super nice guy. Yeah, for sure. So why don't you let us know a little bit about Darryl? Like, you might have noticed, and I put it in the title. I put that inclusivity, little icon on the thumbnail here because I wanted to talk to you tonight. And Joe, Sean, I want you to get involved in this too. But, I really wanted to ask you what your experience has been like since you came into the hobby. And now I'm remembering the first time I saw you. It was at the Mint Collective in Las Vegas. We were watching a presentation by Panini and Hasbro, when they were announcing the Monopoly set.
Monopoly.
And I remember you got up and you went to the microphone and I'd never seen you before. And you said, "Hello, my name is Darryl Garner. I go by Dr. Collectible. And my question is," and I thought to myself, Dr. Collectible, I kind of got, I didn't know you. I remember that's the first time that I ever saw you. And, but anyway, I wanted to just get your thoughts on for yourself, how have you been received by the hobby since you really got in and launched the Dr. Collectible brand and the, I don't know what to call you, an influencer or a promoter or an ambassador. How do you look at yourself? How have you been received?
Yeah, man. I feel like for me, it's been an up and down journey, right? It's either people gonna like you, not like you. It's like we talked about the cards. How many people is collecting Mickey Mantle to Roger Clemens? That's how I look at it. The same way across the board. I treat everyone with respect. First off, I respect everyone's content. It's to the point where, I had one page make a meme about me. I put it on a shirt and wore it at an event and wore it proud. Like the guy said, "Yo, Dr. Collectible with the bucket hats, he look like LL Cool J." All right, I get it. It's funny. People laughed at it, but at the same time, this is just how true to heart I am. I talked to the guy, I told him, I like it. I'm gonna wear it as a shirt. Not only that, a year later, we take that same shirt. I told everyone we're going to sell at least about 25 of them for $25, and we're going to give it to his charity of choice, which was St. Jude. Did that, sold 25 of them. Everything went to St. Jude, and that's the type of mutual respect I think we should all have. Like, it's cool to, laugh and things of that nature, but at the same time, like, I'm not out here just to, get in with everyone and bicker and go back and forth. Like, I'm a cool dude. I want to enjoy this hobby just like everyone else. So for me and my journey, I look at myself as like a media ambassador. I don't look at myself as an influencer. My biggest thing for me was coming into the hobby. I want to showcase the hobby to the masses. I'm not here to influence you, tell you what card to buy, what to flip, what this and that. No, I'm here to showcase what this hobby is about. If I got, if I want to talk about Jeff Gordon, I can talk about Jeff Gordon. That's one of my favorite NASCAR racers. If I want to talk about Deion Sanders, if I want to talk about Whitney Houston and her moment at the NFL, like, that's the stuff I collect. I'm not always talking about the high pricey cars, and I think people for me, people want me to go out and flip. They want me to showcase these sales and things of that nature. And I don't think too many people are going to be interested in my Whitney Houston card that I got. So that's okay.
That was my favorite one you just showed. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I liked it the most too.
Yeah. So that's for me. I'm here to have fun. I'm here to create great content, but also I just found my way of becoming a business in the aspect. The Mint Collective was probably the day that changed my life when it came to me and Ray coming together. So Mint Collective, that I came out of my own money, was working 3 jobs at that time. Took a risk, took off on 2 jobs during that weekend. Was like, yo, I wanna make something for myself, and that was what, 5 years ago.
You just said, I think you just said me and, did you say me and Ray as in Ray Schulte?
Yes, sir.
Ray Schulte from Collectible Media. He's the former, I don't know what his title was with the National, but he was in charge of the ambassador program. He actually recruited you into that ambassador program. Did that happen at the Mint Collective?
Yes, sir. It exactly happened there. I tried to get with him in California. Things happened where it was like weather, couldn't fly out there, and we was going to meet at the Mint Collective. The first individuals that he introduced me to was Leaf Trading. Then after that, he got to mingling. We got to talking. I told him that I wanted to do a partnership with Collectible Media. Then he was like, "No, I'm gonna really give you a chance. I'm gonna bring you in the national and see what you can do from there content wise." And that, man, I thank Ray so much, man, because he took the opportunity on me where I could have did bad, but for that, that's how life goes.
Yeah, Ray's an awesome guy. I consider him a friend, and I always wish him well. And he's always just so encouraging, and he loves the hobby, and he promotes it, and he promotes those within the hobby I believe that he believes in. So he must have seen something in you, Darryl, and wanted to help you out. So that's a wonderful. That's just such a nice thing, that he's really able to do that. You traveled to a lot of shows. Share with us what you're seeing recently at card shows in terms of the. I always ask this on the show, and I hope I get the answers. I hope that the responses fit my question. It's a tough question. It's a tough question to answer, but the vibe, the energy in the room. I always want to hear about that at shows I'm not in, because unless you're in the show, you can't really feel that energy and vibe, right? I mean, Joe, you did not go to the most recent West Coast card show, formerly the Burbank show. You wanted to, but you didn't go. So you don't know. You're not able to tell us what the vibe was like. No matter how much content you watch, you have to be there to feel the vibe. Sean, I've seen you at the National. You go there. Do you feel like, Sean, when you leave the National, do you have a feeling for the energy, the vibes, where the hobby's at, like psychologically at all? Do you feel that leaving the National?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Same with like going to the Dallas card show. I feel like it gives you a good, being on the ground, understanding of how, I mean, you see Instagram, it kind of always stays the same. You may have times where there's Instagram drama in the hobby, or it's, we go in cycles of different things. But what really is kind of with the proof is in the pudding when you go to a big show and you see people showing up, you see money changing hands, people trading cards, just the excitement level of people there. So yeah, I think the in-person being in a show is that's like the perfect litmus test for the hobby. And then it kind of overflows. There are people that show up at these big card shows that aren't represented on Instagram. So you've got people that are collecting, and we think when we're looking at somebody's collection or posts on Instagram that is speaking for a majority of the hobby. When I get in that mindset too, where I think if you've got a sports card YouTube channel or a sports card Instagram or whatever, but then you meet people out at shows and you're like, hey, what's your IG? And a lot of times people have them, but then there's a lot of times where there's guys that are like, I don't really mess with that. They'll maybe only do stuff on Facebook or they'll only do stuff on Instagram. Yeah. So the hobby is a lot bigger than what we see in some of our social media networks, and we only can follow that many people, not a ton of people compared to how many are out there. So yeah.
YouTube as well, right? These are all micro communities within the whole hobby ecosystem itself. Joe, I want to get your thoughts on this whole vibe thing, and then we're going to go back to Darryl so he can answer the question that I asked before I diverted to you guys. But Joe, vibes at shows, how do you find that enhances your experience?
Yeah, I mean, it is easy to feel like there's an echo chamber in social media where you're not really actually getting access to people's lived experiences. And so, getting into, boots on the ground, so to speak. And that's why I'm real interested in what Darryl's going to share with us here in a bit. Darryl, we met at the Burbank show. I don't know if you remember. And then, I saw you kind of like chopping it up with Mr. Minty, Steve, and I thought to myself when I saw you guys, like, because y'all are both traveling all the time and probably seeing people over and over again, sometimes people that you really look forward to seeing, and maybe sometimes people it's like, I've seen you a lot already. I don't need to see you as much. But for me, it's always exciting just to kind of what Sean was saying. It's like seeing it in up close and personal. You just get a different reality to what the hobby is than what you might get in YouTube or social media. So anyway, it's good to hang out with you here, and I want to hear what is the vibe out there like, because you must be traveling all the time.
Yeah. For me, to give a little background, even my experience, I didn't visit my first show until 5-6 years ago, which was Coach Collision, which is in Atlanta. So that was my first show. I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois. We don't have many shows out there. And then even visiting a card shop, I want to say 2016, and that was Dave's Sports Cards. 2017, Dave's Sports Cards. Once again, a lot of this is even from my dad's collection. It's a lot of Mark McGuire stuff like that. But once again, that experience, I didn't get that until I want to say 5-6 years ago. So this is how I look at car shows, the experience, right? Let's say this is your first time. You're not even going to buy. Let's think about it like art. When people go to an art gallery, and I go to the National, right? And I know this is maybe the one time out of the year that I'm going to be able to see this card in person. Just it's the same way as people go to see the Mona Lisa, the Picassos of the world. When people want to go listen to Mozart, the Beethovens, and all this, like I'm really talking about. Like this is art we're talking about, and for me, I don't have the money to go buy that Mickey Mantle, but this is my first chance to go see that PSA 10, that I'm never going to probably come across in my lifetime, or that I may have never came across in my lifetime. So when I tell people you never know what you're going to get at a car show, I can only do so much on social media to give someone the experience. It's only so much. You have to go. You have to go to Canada. You have to check out the sports car. You have the Sports Card Expo, which is in Toronto, but also they do Montreal. You got the Van City Car Show, which you mentioned earlier, which is in Vancouver. Also, you can do CSC, which they do sports cars, and TCG. Not even in my own country. We got so much, and we're talking about the little shows. Let's not even venture the big shows. The National and dealing with the Fanatics Festival World. Let's go support, Charlie's Collectible show out there at Stone Mountain, Georgia, that I'm at every other weekend. That this guy reached out to me 3 years ago saying this is the vision that I got, and he finally made it happen. Now I'm working with him. I want to build with people like that. And I think creating that experience, regardless if it's that kid coming in for the first time at a car shop or a car show, not realizing that 10-year-old could be that next car shop owner or car shop, let's not even say car shop. Let's just say a car show owner. You're talking about diversity at that point. How many people are going to be able to create jobs for individuals in this hobby that loves it? So I respect people in the business lane who's creating these experiences, whether if it's on the small level or whether if it's on the big level. And I can name so many shows that I've been to from Bay Area. I mean, I can keep going, but
Well, Darryl, let me. So
yeah.
I want to jump in and just ask you, like, you're at all these shows. The most recent 2 or 3 or 4 shows you've been to. What has the vibe and energy been like? Is it positive? Are people frustrated? Are you noticing? Are people happy? Vendors, attendees, show promoters, your colleagues, happy, sad, excited, invigorated, depressed? What are the vibes that you're noticing, that you're feeling, the energies in these shows? No, it'll say so far at the shows you've been to in 2025 alone.
It's the ecosystem. There got to be a balance in the ecosystem. I'm seeing it from the outside looking in and the inside. There has to be a ecosystem where the vendor is happy and also the guest, the customer, however you want to call it, the families, whoever you're trying to bring in, whether if it's a free show or whether if it's a show that you're paying $10 to $15, $20 to get in or more. There needs to be an ecosystem. Yes, we do need people buying to keep our vendors happy, but also our vendors got to create this experience for people want to spend their money. There's plenty of times where I've been to shows, or let's say the past couple shows, I'm gonna keep it recent, where I go to the table and maybe no one says nothing to me. You don't know what type of money I got. You don't know what my experience is. This might be my first car show. You might just made it my last. So there has to be the ecosystem. I think there's been great ecosystem in the past couple shows I work with. CSC, they do a great balance of pricing, but also bringing the entertainment. They had this guy Nico come in, perform. So like I said, there's got to be a balance. And I think for the past couple shows, there has been a balance of like the vendor leaving out happy, but also the guests getting a great experience. Not saying it's all across the board 100%, but that's what I have been getting. And people are starting to get their taste of the first shows, especially kids. I'm getting a lot of kids that saying it's their first show.
Speaking of kids, Rage here says, what sports cards alone did for kids, teaching them finances like no school does, is greatness. Yeah, I think that I've seen a lot of kids grow up in the hobby and they become great deal makers, negotiators with confidence, dealing with adults and all that. Vintage Card Collector says the most consistent trend of shows across the country is the rise of TCG vendors, which I just see as an expansion of floor space more than anything. Because I haven't been to a show where I'm like, wait, where are the sports guys? They've been replaced by Pokemon. Instead, what I'm noticing is just more halls and rooms and tables. So that doesn't bother me. Yeah, I mean, I just walk past them, but it doesn't impact my show experience. It makes it feel busier, if anything. Bob Boozle says, I like Darryl's healthy ecosystem idea, not some hellscape where we try to rip everybody off. Yeah, I mean, that for sure. That's a great comment, Bob Boozle. Justin Bode, welcome to the show, buddy. Good to see you, man. Good to see you here in the SCL. So, Darryl, I mean, to summarize, you're noticing the balance, but overall, the vibes, the energies are positive. People are happy. People are happy for the future of the hobby. Is that fair to say? I'm making it up, but is it fair to say?
No, it's definitely fair to say, because we're starting to get that new generation to come in. That's why I'm starting to see, like, okay, 5 years ago, everybody was trying to figure out this boom. You had COVID going on. I think people are now more educated. Like the brother said earlier, kids are starting to learn finances. They're starting to learn the business aspect. It ain't just me and my father collecting cards and eating some cereal in the morning. It's more like what I'm going to do with these, how I'm going to put them on eBay now. What auction house am I going to sell it to that's going to give me the best percentages back? Do I want to sell this raw, graded? I didn't understand these things a few years back. Now it's like these kids I'm seeing holding $10,000 to $20,000 worth of cards.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see that, but it's also scary at certain points because I expect adults, these parents, to also, let's be parents, you know, not just let your kid go out there and make a deal and then you want to snap on the vendor because he took advantage. No, you should have been there with your child. You shouldn't have let your child go out there in the wild like that. And I'm pretty sure your child wouldn't probably get advantage of if the parent is probably in present and knowing what's going on.
Right.
So we get a lot of that in them shows too. But I think it's for the better because these kids are becoming smarter.
Yeah. One of the things, you know, that I think you are a nice influence on younger kids because number one, you keep it clean. You're a family oriented voice in the hobby and brand.
Yes, sir.
And you got your own card in that Topps product, the influencers cards, I think they're called. Bob Boozle says Dr. Collectibles rookie cards are worth more than my Greg Maddux rookie cards. That's who would have thunk that? Hey, Darryl, that you'd have cards that come out of the same packs as those guys. Tell us how you feel. How what was it like to see your own baseball card coming out of a Topps pack? I mean, not many people can say they've had that done if they haven't played a professional sport before.
It's unreal because I read these packs like with my father growing up and being able to do that. First off, I do look at myself as some type of leadership role for kids. My Dr. Collectible started with me in my car in the winter trying to figure myself out. So I think my path, you know, and not to get spiritual and all that, but yeah, I think God made that path for me. Also, what I do for kids. That was one of the big things about me being in that set. Everyone besides I think me and Jess, like everyone was breakers. I was the only one that do what I do in that year. And not only that, having an after school program, teaching kids about sports cards is something that I actually started promoting a little bit. And then I dialed back some years back because, you know, Doc, you know, making money off the kids, pushing the kids. So I kept my kids out of it. You talking about 36 kids in the after school program, been running for over, you know, close to 2 years now. And not only that, that's what I don't talk about.
Yeah.
You know, so when I do look at these kids, yes, big league baseball to me is more of a kid's product.
Very cool.
You know, more family oriented product. Every product is family oriented. I'm not saying that, but yeah, more kids are just ripping that big league. And I love what they did with the little redemption black packs that they had for Rip Night. So, you know, I don't know if there's going to be a 2025 set. I've been looking.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you're going to get a second year card at this point, but
I doubt that. I doubt that. But I'm interested if they're going to bring it back because I haven't heard no noise about.
Yeah, I wonder. They did it twice, I think. Sean, do you have any comments, questions for Darryl before we? I mean, you've been very patient as we brought Darryl on, and we're gonna bring Karvin Cheung on here in a few minutes. But yeah, Sean, I want to give you a chance to, you know, anything else you wanted to discuss tonight? Questions, comments for Joe, myself, or Darryl?
Well, you know, Darryl said something that was really stood out to me that was super key when he talked about sending kids out into the wild at a card show. It reminded me. So when I was young, I actually had an experience as a kid where I think I was 12 years old. And I traded my entire baseball card collection to a dealer for a Michael Jordan autographed basketball that was fake. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know it at the time, but the dealer obviously did. This was a grown man, you know, a guy in his early 40s, and I'm a 12-year-old kid. And so, you know, at the time, I think a Michael Jordan autographed basketball on the market was like a $250 ball. Now, obviously, we've seen those go way up, but I remember it was $250. And so that was my whole collection, all my cards. And this guy, you know, pulled a fast one on me. And then I found out he had totally forged the certificate of authenticity. And so, you know, sadly, those guys are still around. Hopefully he's not. I don't know. He may be setting up at a show somewhere, but, you know, Darryl made a great point. You know, my hope is that I love seeing guys like, you know, Roth Cards. When you see him out at a show, he's always giving packs away to kids, and I love seeing that, because like Darryl said, the next generation is coming, and we have to show them this is a place that they want to stay and continue to be in. And if kids are getting ripped off, they're having, tough experiences at shows, that's just not what we want. We want them to come in, love it like we do, and then continue on, which is why it's awesome to see what Darryl's doing. And he is, he's an ambassador for the next generation. And awesome, man. And awesome that you got your own card. That I wrote in the chat, I'm going to go get a card. Are they on eBay? Can I find one on eBay?
Yeah, man, you can definitely find them on eBay. There's a few of them that's graded. There's a few autograph copies. I ain't gonna lie, this is random. Should I feel like Wemby when there's a kid that I know that I signed a card for and it's graded, now it's up for sale?
And then
Should I feel like Wemby?
You are Wemby.
But like, I've seen that before. I don't feel bad about it, but it does interest me. Like, wow, I did sign that for that kid, and like that moment, and it was like, oh no, bro, I'm just here to sell that joint. It's interesting though. It's an interesting conversation.
Hey, no, that means you made it. Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, if they're flipping your stuff, that means you have the market. There's a market for you. Well, I'm gonna go see if I can find an autographed Dr. Collectible card, and
I'm gonna have to send you one, man. I'm gonna have to send. Actually, I got a Beckett copy.
Okay. That would be awesome, man. Well, I definitely would love to have one.
All right, Sean, before you go, Matthew put this up earlier. This is already 30 minutes ago. He said, just joining. I was super jazzed to see Sean on the show. So nice to know that that people in the chat and the audience were happy to see you on the show tonight, Sean. Thank you for joining us. Always good to see you. And we'll be in touch. We'll talk about some other versions of the song. Maybe. We'll see. But it's hard not to tap into your creativity and your talent. You are Bob Boozlin with talent and creativity.
Awesome. Hey, always fun, Jeremy. Joe, great seeing you. I'm going to enjoy California. Matthew, good to hear from you. And obviously, Darryl, great to meet you, man. You're doing a great job, and glad to have you in the hobby, man.
Thank you. Same back at you, bro.
Thanks, Sean. Right. Take care, bud. We'll see you again soon. All right, guys, before we bring Karvin on, a couple. First of all, Bob Boozle, I have to say, you are serenading me, and I can feel it, buddy. The greatest love of all is adding to my PC. I will always love Sports Cards Live. Didn't we almost have it all, Jeremy? Very nice, Bob. And Dan says the Philly show was double the size of 2 years ago. Much of the growth was TCG. And I believe from the one I was at in September, there was that back room where the autograph signings happened that they opened that up to really a lot more TCG. Bob Boozle would pay to watch Dan buy some Pokemon. I'm thinking when we have a Pokemon themed episode here on SCL, we're going to get Dan to come on. It seems like he's maybe the new Pokemon guru in the hobby. Sean, before he left, said he's looking for a Dr. Collectible card now from Topps. I forget what's the Topps. What the not
Big League.
Big League. For sure. HB said Joey P for hobby president, Dr. Collectible for vice president. But guys, we do respect the man in the office at the time, and we're not looking to usurp that for quite some time until it is appropriate. That's for sure. Mookie Chilson says there are lots of social media silos in the hobby. I wish that wasn't the case. Yeah, there are silos and there are cliques and there are gangs and it's a whole thing, Mookie. You know all about it for sure. Bob Boozle says, I get so emotional when I hit a show. It's the greatest love of all. More of the serenading from Bob Boozle. Rage says, I agree. Every show is different. Yes, sir. Carlos says dealers are stealers. I guess Carlos had some bad experiences at card shows. And Vintage says that Roth would be a great guest for SCL. I don't know Roth very well. I've seen him at shows, but Vintage, I'm curious why. What would he bring? I'm curious because I want to know who you guys want to see on the show as well, because I will invite them. You guys send me a message, a DM. If you put it in the chat, it might be hard for me to recall, but, email, DM on IG, whatever. Let me know if there's someone you'd like to see on the show yourselves, for sure. Okay. Oh, Michael says apparently the doctor's card is limited to just 1,000 copies. Is that true, Darryl? Only 1,000 copies?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Very okay, guys. We're gonna bring on Karvin Cheung, but at the guest, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to bring more value to the partners and sponsors that Sports Cards Live has supporting what we're doing here, and I'm grateful for them. So I want to shout out Chronosio. Again, I do this at the beginning of the episode, but a lot of you come on later, guys. But Chronosio is a leading inventory management system in the hobby. Home.chronosio.com. You know, they're not there to handle your 100 cards, but if you're doing 1,000, 50,000, even 250,000 cards, check out Chronosio, you guys. Hello, Kinger. Happy Saturday to you. Karvin, are you ready to join us on the show? He's given me thumbs up. Jacob Gaudreau says Junk Wax Museum. Yeah, he's often in the chat. I don't know how to get a hold of these people always. Hit me up in the DMs, guys. Let's bring out. Oh, Darryl, do you know Karvin? You know Karvin. All right, here he comes, guys. Here he comes.
This is one of the goats. This is the goats coming in there.
Carv, in the email I sent, if you're on a phone.
Oh, sorry.
Like this,
Let's turn it up. There we go.
There we go. Well, hey, buddy, welcome back. It's been a few months since you've been on. How are you tonight?
I'm good. And thanks for having me back, especially with Darryl. And unfortunately, I couldn't say hi to everyone else before me, but I'm here to join to the end here. So I'm glad to be on again.
Yeah,
great to be on.
Glad to have you back. Have you been listening to much of what we've been talking about so far?
I listened to a bit. I jot down some points, some cool points that you guys had mentioned, especially Leighton, and it brought some new business ideas for me. So it's good. It's good. I like it.
Well, hey, let's jump in then, Karv, and
yeah.
I mean, you had some thoughts on what you heard earlier. Why don't you lead out with that? Because really, I wanted to talk to you. State of the hobby was one of the topics that I had in the promotion for the episode, because you see what's going on working with a distributor. And I think that you have great insight. So I want to get to that. But first, please address those thoughts you had, what you heard earlier. And let's start there.
Well, I'm glad that we're talking about kids and getting more people involved, new people involved. And I think that's really key to the hobby itself. Some of us, like the OGs, like 3 of us here are OGs, and unfortunately, we're a little bit older. We're probably Generation X, and versus Generation Zs and alphas, like my daughter and your daughter and your kids. We want to get them involved in the hobby, and how do we do that? And I think there's definitely methods that all the different companies are doing so, and they're doing a great job doing that. However, with that being said, it's a tough time in the hobby right now. So it is a tough time, the state of the hobby, especially on the retailer side and all that. Liquidity is an issue. Cash flow is an issue. Also, the uncertainty of I'm not trying to get into politics, but the uncertainty of politics plays a big role now, because you guys are based in Canada. At 25% to the cost of trading cards coming into Canada, it's going to be a big issue, right? Especially with the
exchange. Is that specifically going to impact like Upper Deck shipping their hockey cards up here from the US?
So if the product is produced in the U.S. and shipping it through the border, the custom agent's going to charge 25% on top of it. If it still exists, the tariffs, right? So that's tariffs. That's not including your GST or HST and every other tax we're talking about. So it's 25%, and also factor in the weaker Canadian dollar is going to affect it. But that's that's for hockey, and that's for Upper Deck. Let's go into Panini or Topps with basketball and football and soccer entertainment. A lot of it's moving into Asia. Well, China is going to be one of the top areas where a lot of products are consumed. So add on that, they're looking at adding another 20 to 25% too on top of it. So that's going to be an issue. It's already been an issue in the last 2 years with customs in China. So it's going to be even worse now. So add in those 20%, 25%, you're talking about the cost of goods is way more expensive then. So those are issues. I think the one thing that I look at it, and it's interesting where the hobby was in 2019 versus today. Obviously after the pandemic, the hobby went to new heights. If we talk about inflation, the inflation in trading cards far surpasses anything else in inflation, I would say. You can talk about cars, housing, and everything, but trading cards went from SRP of $100 to a box to $500 a box or $600 a box. So that's 4x, 5x. And unfortunately, back then someone could order $10,000 worth of cards and get like 5 cases of product. Well, these days, $10,000 worth of cards is only like a case.
Let me ask you a question in terms of inflation, and this ties into what Darryl's doing is when you say, I think to myself, that must make it harder on the kids. And then I think to myself, but these kids are walking around with their Zion cases filled with 80K worth of cards. Who, in your view, Karvin, is mostly impacted negatively by the inflation that we've experienced with wax over the past 5-6 years?
Well, I hate to say this, it's the OGs. It's the people like you, yourself, and myself, and Joe. When we used to buy boxes of product for like $150 a box, and now they're $600 a box, we're like, is there a big difference in the product now today than there was back then? Yeah, there's a bigger set, there's better return on rookies, but is the return even comparable to what it was? So those are like I always talk about ROI. Now, I get it. When you open a box of cards, look at everyone wants to make money. As someone had on your show, I always said, like even the collector, the consumer wants to make money, right? Well, that goes for any collectibles, not consumables, but collectibles. That goes also with the casinos, right? If you're not making any money gambling, then you're not going to come back, right? So that's just part of it. That's the rush, right? The dopamine hit. And unfortunately, I think the trading card aspect is now becoming more and more of a dopamine hit. You'll see it like especially in break rooms where guys go, come on, next box, next box, next box. The whole experience of opening a box is gone. Back in the day when we used to open, let's say, a case of Cup or a case of Exquisite or even a case of Upper Deck Hockey, you get to enjoy the cards, right? So to me, there's in terms of opening boxes of cards, there's 3 types of value. There's what I call the perceived value. Right, so whatever you open, you say, "Oh, this is out of 100." So you always match it up. Out of 100, this is worth $40. Let's say for this player. Then there's the real value, which I address like when you go eBay it, or when you go sell it, or you comp it. That's your real value, right? Perceived value and real values aren't the same because when you're opening a pack of cards, you quickly have this perceived value. So you really want to comp everything, but you don't want to interrupt your breaking experience. But the last and the most important part of opening a box of cards, whether it's on breaking, and we don't see it much on the online breaks anymore, is the experience. The experience, the value of the experience is more important than anything else, or what I call the entertainment value, right? Like going to watch a film, a TV show, watching Sports Card Live, or even opening a box of cards and just going, wow, look at this. Look at the details in the card art, in the foil, in the chrome. Look what the companies have done. Look at the back of the cards and say, hey, you know what? Did you know, right? Like we don't even have that anymore. It's all like, this is authentically guaranteed by this company, and then or not associated with the player, or all these things that everyone gets triggered by these things. I'd rather on the back it says a fact about a player.
Yeah.
Like, did you know, like this guy was born on this day that Ovechkin scored his first goal? Or something like that. Like something like unique like that is way more important than an authenticity or a list of stats that I can't even see.
Or the word congratulations across the back. Like I don't need to be congratulated I just don't need that anymore personally. Like I almost feel like you're trolling me when you say congratulations on the back of the card, especially considering that what percentage of cards are traded on the secondary market, especially with breaking now, where people are getting cards they don't even want, so they go to move them. And now it's I know exactly. You don't have to congratulate. I know exactly what I'm getting. I want to ask Darryl though, Karvin. I want to just kind of pause you for a moment because he's talking about getting kids involved. You're talking about the reality of the increase in prices to get involved in the hobby. Darryl, when you're talking to kids, specifically talking to them, do you hear kind of feedback that do you hear kids kind of sad because they can't afford cards, or like how do you find that in the kids you're interacting with that the price of wax is impacting them, if at all?
You go in the right direction, because it's like how I first got it alone, not with my father collecting and things of that nature, but I'm talking about literally on my own. I had to go on eBay every 30 minutes. Like eBay every 30. I'm looking for that card. I had slowed down now. But at first it was bad. Cause I'm like, man, I used to get mad if I didn't get, and I still do, like if I'm on eBay and I ain't get that card I wanted. Cause like personally, I was trying to build a Kobe Bryant Pop One set from each year they played, like an autograph, but it's like Pop One. It could be like a base card that he autographed, you know, just Pop One. I will get so mad. And I know if I was getting mad, these kids, you talking about on times 10, I see mom, you know, we can't get it today. I can't get it, baby. I can't get it. And these kids just don't understand, like, yo, mom can't get it like that. You know, and when you talk about prices, used to be $120 some. Now you looking at $600. The experience is now dim, but these kids though are like it's a hit. Like they need, like I see them go through the packs. Like I got a video right now in my phone from a car show that I went to where I seen all the base cars was in the trash, filled up. And I'm like, that was the experience to be able to see somebody like Jeff Gordon, look at the stats, see how much, you know, money he won from each and every race, and really like looking at that player. Because I'm like, these kids, I know they ain't looking at ESPN like I was. Yeah. I know they not. So the way I learned from about these players are like my brother said here, you start looking on the back of the car, you start looking at the stats, or you start learning something new, or when they won something. Like this guy was in my textbook in elementary school. I'm pretty sure we're not going to see many guys in textbooks, probably maybe a LeBron James or something like that. But that's where I'm going to when these kids are getting that feeling. And I think we're definitely leaving from that. It's nothing wrong with that, but it's like, I shouldn't see base cards filled up to the rim in the trash can at a car show.
It's a sad situation. And Joe, you've been around a long time. You know, what are you know, are kids gonna, is the fact that cards are so expensive to open, like ultra modern, the new products, the latest releases, they're very expensive. Fewer kids can afford them. Joe, do you have concerns? And then to you, Karvin, same question. But Joe, do you have concerns about the longevity, the future of the hobby because of that? Or will they just come in when they're older and can afford it if they can? How do you think these increased prices that we've really only experienced excessively since the pandemic, how do you think that, how does that bode, not just bode, just bode, how does that bode for the long-term future of the hobby in your mind, Joe?
I don't know. I do have some concerns, but I also think that, you know, the younger generation will figure it out. I think it's important, you know, young people don't always listen to you, but they never fail to notice, see what you do, you know, and so we need to model for them what we think actually will serve them well with our own behaviors. And I'm not sure the adults are always doing that at this point. So yeah, let's model our enthusiasm for, you know, what's being expressed on the back of cards, for the aesthetics of cards, for the experience and the fun of engaging, whether they're, you know, a gold prism or, you know, a really cool base card, like, you know, that new Prism LeBron. I kind of like that. I kind of like that new Prism LeBron, and I'd be happy to have that base card in my collection. So yeah, I know Karvin has a lot more to share with like the current market stuff. And Darryl, I just want to acknowledge, I've seen you in person engaging with young people, and you just have a genuine heart and patience, and your presence, I think, goes a long way in helping people feel positive and excited to be in that space. So I just encourage, you know, all of us to continue to show up with our authentic presence and show our own enthusiasm to the young people.
Well said. Well said. Always. This is why he's a future presidential candidate right there, guys.
Out of the way, I never wanted, I didn't want to be a president as a young person. I don't want to be a president now. So get that out of the way.
I want to bring up a comment. You know, Iowa Dave and I, we've talked about this before, and I share his sentiment. He says, thanks, Karvin, for shouting out the back of sports cards. That is precious real estate for information and education. And yeah, I mean, and nowadays it's just like you see the back of some cards, guys. It's almost completely blank.
Well,
and I feel like it's mostly Panini cards. I see that on when I'm looking at the back of a, for whatever reason, that's just what sticks out in my mind. I'm not picking on them for any reason other than that's what I remember seeing is very little on the back of a lot of Panini cards. And Karvin, let's just touch on the back of cards because I'm with Iowa Dave. I love the backs of cards. So what do you want to, what can you tell us about that, Karvin? Are the card companies ever going to come around and start?
Okay, so this is 2022
that real estate.
Sorry, this is 2022 is Tops Now, right? Direct to consumer. So the back has basically a bio about the date. Like,
tilt
sorry,
it,
I can't.
Tilt it.
I am right there. There you go. Right. But
Yeah.
here's the flaw of this card. All right. Look at the numbering. Look at the number.
Yeah.
Can you even see that number? Right. Well, I can tell you right now on a blank screen that I'm looking at it, I can't read the number. And I'll say this much: kids don't collect sets. Kids collect players. They collect value. You know who collects sets? Baby boomers and Generation X, people that need glasses. So why do you make it so hard? So thankfully, Topps did make the number a lot bigger, and then that way. So this is a part of the hobby that is missing right now. Like for example, the back of cards, I believe that there's a lot of geography there. There's a lot of things that we can learn about the players and more research being done, especially today when. Back in the day when I first started at Upper Deck, right, we would have the almanacs of every single year of baseball, and you have to look up the almanacs and look for these facts, these did you know facts, right? And at that time on ESPN, there was also the whole did you know, like every single time you go to commercial, it says did you know this much, right? Now everything can look up on the internet, so it's so easy for anyone to have this information on the internet to even publish on the back of the cards. And those are key moments, even to the point where if you look at, and this is what I like about the 50s and 60s, the vintage cards. Although I don't collect vintage cards, I like how some of them had the scratch offs, like the invisible ink type thing for answers and trivia. Some of them had the games that you flip over, like flipping cards and hitting home runs and singles. All that information was all there. That's all lost in the last 30 years in trading cards, and that's a shame, right? But card numbers, and I can't believe where the card companies have gone in terms of listing odds. None of us can read that. Why not just give us a QR code so we can just scan it and put it on our phone and look at it and give us the checklist off that box? Maybe not the checklist, but that's up to date till the end, right? But even then, you can still update it the whole time. It doesn't have to be on paper. It doesn't have to be on the internet, right? If it's off a QR code, you can have the most up-to-date checklist off a QR code and all the odds where we can read instead of using a microscope. I bet we have to use that Mr. Minty microscope to see the odds and disclaimers on every single box or packs, which is kind of ridiculous, right? So,
yeah. Well, here, Mickey in Orlando gives us this comment here about 4 minutes ago. He says, "I'm a junk wax era guy. We opened packs and got fired up about what we got. It's kind of bad. It's kind of sad. Hard. What is this? It's kind of bad of hard to open packs now and not." Yeah, what he's basically saying is now you open packs and you think about what you did not get because it's so hard to get a card these days that has that perceived value that you referred to earlier, Karvin.
Mm-hmm.
And
exactly.
That's the fact. It is a sad state, like he said, but that is the way it goes. Bob Boozle, he likes card backs and he cannot lie. Jacob Gaudreau says, "I like when my card says congratulations. This isn't a real autograph or even a real piece of fabric." Don't congratulate me. Say, I pity the fool. I pity the fool who paid for this card. Dan's Vintage says, "Some of my cards I can only afford because there's paper loss on the back. It's a tough trade for adding an impossible card, but that's what you got to do sometimes is take that card that might not be in perfect condition. And hey, if the back of the card is all ripped up but the front looks good, you're kind of halfway there. It's easier to swallow having a low grade card. Let's say Uno Ma says Karvin always drops knowledge. I could listen to him talk hobby history forever. Well, let's give you another chance here, Karvin. So you were mentioning that, right? You mentioned a few minutes ago that cash flow, I think you mentioned was tough. You might have mentioned liquidity. I'm not sure. You said cash flow and something else. Can you expand on what is like, and this is, I put it on the Instagram post. what happens in a year with a really poor rookie class? How does that impact the ecosystem, Karvin? How does that impact LCSs, distributors, even breakers, and ultimately the collectors who want to just put the set together every year, pick up a few rookie cards? How does a poor rookie class impact the ecosystem? Over to you, Karv.
Well, especially these days, a poor rookie class can really hurt the hobby. Because number one, there's less excitement for, you know, the hype of the rookies. Even after, like, let's say the beginning 2 months, 3 months, even half a year, there's no excitement. That's an issue, right? That's people are like, I don't want to buy this year's cards. I'll wait till next year's cards, or I'll buy last year's cards, right? So this is the net effect of after, let's say, a Wembayama year. Everyone was all excited about Wembayama. The following year coming up, now you got Alexander Sarr, you got Zachariah Richeche and Reed Shepard. And these guys, some of these guys, long-term will have a lot of value. They'll be key guys, but they're not Wemby. Same thing in hockey. You have Connor Bedard having a monster year, or a monster rookie, a generational rookie. And then this following year, even though there's other players that come in, like, Macklin Celebrini, right? You got Lane Hudson out of Montreal. Like, all these guys are great rookies, but it's not Connor Bedard. And what also happens is that in an exciting rookie year, a lot of the products go up in value quite a bit. So they spike up, and the following year is like, well, okay, the price point's lower now, but no one's excited about these rookie class, and now they'd rather buy last year's sets or not buy at all. And that is one of the tough part of having a rookie class. Now, this is what I would say in terms of one of the things that I always felt that being at a guy who created sets, I actually like the challenge of not having a strong rookie class. Because at the end of the day, I remember walking into a feedback panel about LeBron, and they're like, Karvin, we don't need to talk to you. You got LeBron. I go, wait a second. I got some new exciting ideas about what we can do about the hobby. And they're like, nah, let's go talk about baseball. Let's talk about football. You don't need any help. You got LeBron. But we as creators, people that are creative, we want to be able to say, hey, I'm going to create something unique for LeBron. Or in the case I don't have LeBron, how do we bring back that ROI or the value or the entertainment value to products that's outside of the rookie year, right? Every single set, no matter what year it is, what rookies in there, should have a reason for being. And it's up to you being creative to create that narrative and create that story behind that product to make collectors want to buy your product or our product, right? I would say. And that's really key. It's the whole mindset is, oh, I got a bad rookie class. That's it. I have a creative block. No, that's not the attitude to have. You know down the pipeline, if you're scouting rookies, you know which classes are going to be strong, potentially strong. Some of them will potentially weak. But at the same time, you can come up with specialty ideas that you leave in place for the years that you value. Do you feel that possibly the hype isn't there for rookies, and you got to build it that way? If you look at, let's go back to Exquisite or Cup, second year of Cup. You got a Malkin, right? He was better than expected. There was other players in that year that were better than the 04, 05, 06 rookie class. Besides Malkin, like, you got your Jordan Stalls, you got your Andre Kopitars, you got all these players that are now like franchise players, like cornerstone players that these teams had. But yet at the same time, everyone's like, oh, it's after a Crosby year, then an Ovechkin year, then you can't come up with a product. We can't have that defeated attitude. It's more like, I'm more excited about this year and how we're going to bridge that excitement. New innovations, new ideas, new different cards.
Yeah. I'm really like, I hear what you're saying. And I guess the thing that I'm curious about is the LCS and its ability to survive a year where it's tougher because the prices might not come down as much as they should, relatively speaking, based on the previous year. And they have to sell a product that a lot of people may not want as much of. And how does that impact their cash flow, their financing? Is it like Mr. Minty in the chat? I'm going to bring his comment out right now. He says, it goes up and down. It averages out. Well, maybe over 5 or 10 years or even 3, but can all the LCSs survive the up and down in the demand for the products coming through, especially at these new prices? Is there risk that are some LCSs potentially going to go out of business if they Like, is that a realistic scenario right now where LCS is? It's not as simple. Maybe it's not as simple as what Mr. Minty says. Is he simplifying it too much? And hi, Steve. Always good to see you, buddy. Is he simplifying it a little bit too much, or can you speak to that? And then we're gonna switch. Darryl, we're gonna thank you very much for coming on. It's been a pleasure having you. We're gonna bring Chris Hoge on, but let's let Karvin answer that, and then we'll give you a proper goodbye, Darryl.
Okay, well, definitely. The price of everything, especially with inflation. So leases have gone up since 2000 and 2020. Sorry, 2020 and 2021. Leases have gone up. Wages have gone up. The cost of doing business has gone up, right? And for a long time, everyone was doing pretty well in the hobby. Now the hobby's kind of changed. People are working on slimmer margins. A lot of people are selling all their singles to a lot of guys buying for repacks. And just to be honest, repacks have kind of lifted up the comps, to be honest, because there's a lot of cards that would collectors even collect, but the repack people will buy them, right? So it helps liquidity on a different level. But with that said, it's the cost of doing business is definitely tougher now. Margins are lower, and I'm concerned about a lot of the hobby shops that are primarily sports cards only. Look at this is not my first rodeo, right? In the 90s, I seen through this, and my first national was 1991, the best national that anyone can remember up to recent times, right? And I was there, wow, look at this, man. Every single booth had Pele signing over here, had Emmitt Smith signing over there. There's all free autographs everywhere. It was like Disneyland for me for sports cards. And then all of a sudden, 2-3 years later, it's like, oh no, what's happening? There's less interest. There's more sets now out, like more unique sets. And there was that innovation of finest, and there's innovation of like SP out that, or SPA or SP at that time, SP premium, right? And we're looking at, man, the cards are getting nicer. There's different sets, but there's so many sets now. You got Stadium Club, you got Finest, you got like 10 different products for each company, and there's a multitude of companies. But what's the one thing that start happening is that diversification start happening, and I'm seeing that now. So TCG is taking a big chunk away from the sports card side. Now you're hearing it about the shows. You're seeing it, people. You're going to shops and everyone's selling Pokemon now, right? Let alone One Piece, and Magic is making a comeback now. Like Magic the Gathering, they've just introduced Final Fantasy collaboration. They're doing the Marvel collaboration. Those are going to be smoking hot. So with that being said, and there's new companies coming in with new IPs now coming in too. So I would say this is one of the areas that I think hobby shops need to take a look at as diversification. So
to survive, just to survive.
Yeah. Yes. And bringing in more singles, buying and selling more singles. Obviously, that's where you have an opportunity.
I think that's I agree with you on that. I've as I've said before, I judge for my enjoyment of any LCS is almost 100% depend on, number one, the personality of the proprietor behind the counter, and number two, the selection of singles, how many and what they are. Mr. Manos here says, never met Dr. Collectible. Nice to meet you, big dog. Very nice, Mr. Manos. Appreciate that welcoming comment for our guest, Darryl Garner, tonight. All right, Darryl, listen, man, I know you've been quiet the last little bit, as is Joe, but that's the way we roll around here, man. It was great to have you on the show. Good to see you again. Keep doing what you are doing. And I will see you. I'm sure I'll see you at the Toronto Expo here next month. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. I'll be out there. I actually have recently booked flights this week.
Right on. Okay, so you're coming. That's great. We'll see you there. Maybe we'll sit on a panel together and do some discussing of the hobby in that environment versus this one here. So that'd be great, man.
I'll say this: you throwing, the trade night or something like that, little gathering. I think all of us can get in the room together again.
Yeah. I got something cooking for sure. So we'll see you there. We'll see you there for sure, guys. Joe, Karv, give him a nice goodbye, and Darryl, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
What you're doing.
Peace out.
Keep doing what you're doing.
See you, Darryl.
All right, guys. Before we bring Chris Hoge on, guest change, I want to shout out channel sponsor and partner, Rolling Insights, guys. These guys give you data. Get rid of those messy spreadsheets. Check out how your players are performing. Go to rolling-insights.com. Ben Hostler of Rolling Insights will be back on the show, I believe, next Friday. next Saturday. He was supposed to come on tonight. Family event happened. He'll be back with us next Saturday. All right, guys, let's bring on to join the discussion our closer, none other than Mr. Chris McGill, Chris Hoge of Card Ladder. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back, as always. Yes.
Great to see all you guys. All you guys are friends of mine. Really nice to be on this panel.
Good to see you, bud. Good. Welcome back. We've got some topics here right now that I had, tabbed for Karvin, state of the hobby. He sees what's going on. When you heard him say just now, Chris, that, some LCSs might not make it through a tough rookie class, what does that make you think about the hobby and the degree to which we rely on rookies to keep the businesses going? Because let's face it, a lot of us who are collecting retired players, it doesn't really impact us, but none of us want to see the LCS go away or a business fail. I mean, it's just mean if you want to see businesses fail, right? So where does that leave you? And then Joe, if you could respond to that. And unfortunately, I'm not going to hear the first 90 seconds because I got to run off for a minute. But Chris, take that away if you don't mind, and I'll be right back, guys.
Yeah, it's extremely concerning. And I'm a big advocate of the welfare of hobby shops. I think they're so important. And just personally, they're one of the most fundamental portions of my hobby experience is going into the hobby shop. And no matter what city I'm traveling in, whether I'm on a road trip stopping somewhere overnight or I'm in a destination, having a hobby shop that I can find on Google Maps is a real quality of life improvement that I don't want to ever take for granted. So if hobby shops are in jeopardy, that's really concerning. I think one thing, here's an angle. This is one of the first thoughts that occurred to me listening to this discussion was, are we doing a good enough job? And maybe not we, but are the manufacturers doing a good enough job creating awareness of the value that are in products that extends beyond the rookie cards? So as an example, it does seem that 2024-25 Prism is suffering. I think the retail price is a fraction of what the hobby boxes debuted at or are currently selling at for any of the previous years, and rookie class is a big part of that. But do people realize that there's still a LeBron James Prism Black 1 of 1 in those boxes? Do people know that that card is worth tens and tens of thousands of dollars? There's a Luka Doncic Prism Black in there. I was talking to a collector friend of mine who's a Nuggets collector, and he said, man, have you seen any of the Nuggets Prism Black 1 of 1s or Prism Gold out of 10s come out of the new Prism basketball product? And I was like, honestly, no, I haven't. I really haven't seen nearly the number of singles hitting the open market right now that we usually see with previous products. And it has to be because not as much of it is getting ripped, and it's just the energy isn't around the product. But do people know that there are so many more chases in these boxes that collectors like myself are counting on these people to open up these boxes? People know that there are still plenty of cards. Like if that Jokic Prism Black 1 of 1 comes out, I will pay 5 figures for that card. So everybody go out there and start opening those boxes, because I need these cards to get out of packs, and breaking boxes just isn't my style.
Well, this is a good kind of discussion, since we were talking about that last week about how people should convert to singles and not open boxes. And the hobby is really interesting because it's a fine balance. The balance of the economy is very interesting. You have the people that create the boxes, which needs to be open, which via the breakers and also the stores and individuals that break open the boxes. And then all of a sudden they have the singles now. They can kind of distribute amongst the secondary market. And then obviously they get their money from the people that are looking for these singles, like Hoge is looking for the Jokic 101, the black. And what I will say is that in this year's Prism, I will say this year is probably one of the most unique sets. There's a lot of uniqueness in the Prism. I think Panini has done more to put into the product. The design is completely different this year than other years. The other years kind of almost mirror to each other, but this year is actually unique. And even the LeBron card, I know there's been a lot of debate about the LeBron card, but him doing the chalk throw was a unique card on its own, right? And this is it. This is the last year of Prism. You're not going to have Prism anymore in a licensed product. So this is your chance to add to your collection, and that is it. Now, when we talk about singles, and what's interesting is that obviously Chris is a huge 90s singles collector. It's interesting how come all these cards are worth so much money. It's because at that time during the 90s, there was tons of boxes and there was no online breakers. There wasn't as many. There was a lot of LCS, but there was a lot of products too. And a lot of these cards weren't liberated. That's why the Playmaker Theater is at 100, the Slam Bams, all these cards out of 100, out of 50. Like, we've never seen these cards. Why is that? Well, I remember that year because I had my LCS at the time. And Series 1 of every single product by Fleer or Upper Deck, because there was a lockout, the league said to all the manufacturers, whatever is not broken as in the box form, you can return it back to the manufacturer. It was 100% returnable because there was a lockout year. So if you had boxes unsold on your shelf, you just gave it back and they destroyed it. So a lot of those cards were never liberated. And this is what we're seeing with this year, and especially in Prism basketball. So that's almost like a whole generation. The cycle has come up again. And that's why I'm saying, like, everything that I'm seeing about the hobby, I'm basing it on the cycle that I lived through and I went through and I experienced through. And even though things are different, obviously there's online breakers, the value is different, the way we sell things are different, the cycle is starting to repeat itself too. So,
Joe, you want to jump in with some thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Karvin. There's always a balance, the cycles, and yeah, listen to Karvin and you will learn a lot. And then Hoj, what you were saying about the marketing, it makes me wonder, yeah, if we're just in a time where card companies have sort of lost sight of what they can do to help consumers become excited about products. I don't know, how they might tout that. Maybe they just have other concerns, other more pressing concerns, especially in the case of Panini, where, they're looking at the end of a whole run, of a whole legacy. But I mean, you just did a great job of reminding all of us. It's been on my mind, and even more so, we chatted the other day, and the magnitude of the Panini era coming to a close kind of hit me. And initially it was sadness that, the Prism brand might be retiring, but then, there was, as you mentioned, the opportunity of kind of closing it and having those types of cards become more cherished as time marches on. But who knows? I think there's just so much up in the air between the Fanatics and the Panini, feud, if you will, that I'm not sure everyone is keeping an eye on kind of the experience of the consumer. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I have a kind of like there's these competing sort of messages that I think we get in the hobby. And and I'm going to go to a couple of comments in the chat. First, Carlo here says, if a player has 50 black 1-of-1s, what makes that card so special, especially if it's not even a rookie card? And then we have Mr. Minty says, nah, Panini was just cheap and didn't spend marketing dollars. So the connection I'm making between those two comments is that, let's say Panini did spend money on marketing. And what's that going to do? It's going to increase demand. That means they're going to have to increase supply, because that's just how things work, right? You're going to have to increase supply to meet the new demand. Well, what are they going to put in this? What are they going to put in these cases? More base cards? No, nobody wants base. Not nobody. Few people want base anymore. So what are they going to put in there to generate excitement? It has to be what we now call hits. Autographs, jersey cards, memorabilia cards, or low or not so low serial numbered cards, even down to the 1-of-1s. So on the one hand, we want to grow the hobby. We want there to be cheaper product out there for more people to buy. But what are they going to put in there to then sell the product to make it worth their while, because there's an opportunity cost of that production of a low-end product where they could be pushing through a higher-end product. They're going to sell for more money, generate more shareholder value, which is their only mission of existence, is shareholder value and profit. So we want two things here. We want there to be more collectors. We want it to be cheaper for the kids and the people who can't afford the high-end stuff. But at the same time, we don't want more one-of-ones. We don't want more black one-of-ones. We don't want more napkin patches. What else are they going to fill these cases with, guys? So you see what I'm like? I don't know. This is just where my mind goes. I've just thought of this here on the spot. Don't hold me to it. But what, I'd like to hear all three of your responses to that. Maybe we start with you, Karvin, because you might have the greatest insight into it. But where do we go from there?
So let's go to marketing dollars. I think Panini has spent quite a bit over the years. If you look at their tenure, they've had Kobe Bryant doing commercials. They had, I believe, was Andrew Luck at that time was the big rookie, right? And especially for World Cup soccer, they've done B-rolls of all kinds of events. They've had break with athletes at the photo shoots. They had them at spring training. They've had them everywhere, right? All these things have been going on. I think it's the problem is the scope of when you saw the hobby, right? The NBA, the NFL, the NHL, they all require all these card companies to spend money. There's not just a minimum guarantee. There's a minimum marketing spend, which is in the millions of dollars. It could be on-site activation at a stadium. It could be something that's unique that you're going to provide, especially for the retail, like Walmarts and Targets, something like that, some promotions there, right? It's more on site than it is on a much more bigger marketing scale on social media and also on TV or commercials like that. What I will say is that with Fanatics is that that's where their specialty is. They got the relationships with the athletes and they have the marketing people to take it to another level, because they've been doing commercials every single event. So for them, they had the people there. Whereas Panini, they were doing it, and they were doing even like the special rip nights. They had Player of the Day, they had events, and they had events where, like, for example, for us as a distributor, we would invite 100 stores to come meet all the top rookies. They got to meet Patrick Mahomes as a rookie. They got to meet Ezekiel Elliott and Jared Goff and all these players. But the thing is that was more on a one-to-one scale versus the masses, right? But know that wasn't before the pandemic. That was before when all the hyperbola of the hobby has gone parabolic or exponential. So those are the reasons why you don't see it as much, because you don't remember those days that those dollars were spent. Or go back to Upper Deck. I mean, I'll tell you this much. When you go back to Upper Deck, go into YouTube and watch the Kevin Garnett commercial that we did back in the day. It's a trade between a kid for Kevin Garnett wanted his Kevin Garnett jersey card back because there's a hole in his jersey, and he was giving up all these cards, trading back for his jersey card so he can patch the jersey back into his hole, right into the hole of the jersey. So that was kind of cool. But I bet you 95% to 99% of the collectors out there don't even know that commercial exists back in the day.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah, I mean, I think what Joe's got going on. I think
that's interesting, Joe. I think that's my first product ever produced.
Really?
Yeah, it's the MJ's Back solicitation that's on a quart board, I think, and it's that's the special bonus pack. That was my first product that came into existence.
And does it come in and out of focus like this? Is that part of the feature?
That's because he has that little background that's blocking.
Yeah, it's a green screen. So I mean, listen, we've seen some of the card companies innovate in order to bring value to an increased level of production based on the last 5 years, the growth in the hobby. We've seen Upper Deck with the Young Guns bring out the new Outburst parallels, and we've seen Topps bring in the debut patch. I know there's not many cards total, but they've added the debut patch. We've seen Panini put out the Paparadopoulos parallel now, and among 3 dozen others type of thing. And then back to what I was saying earlier, but the hobby complains. The hobby still complains about some people don't like the debut patch. It's a gimmick. Some people don't like all the parallels, too many parallels. Again, I come back to, what is the alternative to meet a growing demand? Despite increased prices, are the companies doing it right? Are they doing it wrong with some of these new initiatives? Let's get Joe and Chris's thoughts on that. I think, Joe, why don't we go to you first? I feel like it's been a bit since we heard from you since I came back from my break.
Yeah, no worries. I don't know. This is honestly, I mean, these are questions that I think have so many considerations and contexts. I go back to what Karvin was saying earlier about the tariffs, and we talked a little bit about, kind of last week, I think, about plastics and hobby supplies. I can't imagine that card companies are feeling particularly bullish in, investing in marketing, and they're probably trying to gain a sense of where the profit margins are and what distribution looks like. So to be honest, I'm a little out of my league in this conversation, but I do think it's complex and nuanced.
Chris, what about you in terms of what you've seen from the debut patch, the parallels, proliferation of parallels? Do you think that's the right way to balance out overproduction with delivering value?
Yeah, I think manufacturers have to sort of consider two different bodies of evidence. The first one would be survey style information, meaning we look at what collectors are saying on Instagram and gather it, or we host focus groups, or we catalog customer service reports, and we form some sort of approximation of the sentiment towards a particular product. But that evidence isn't always reliable. This is an effect that happens in all different types of opinion surveys and similar methodologies. It happens in politics all the time, where pollsters will try to design the precise questionnaire that will actually hopefully produce a sample that can predict the outcome of an election, and they really struggle with it. And they find oftentimes that people don't intend to mislead the pollster, but they don't always actually have the ability to communicate what their voting preference is. Instead, they find themselves sort of playing this game with the pollster and seeing what they can say that makes the pollster comfortable, or they might be thinking they're pandering to an audience, or they might be concerned for a variety of reasons about revealing their true beliefs. So it's useful, it's instructive. Pollsters still at the end of the day are pretty accurate, at least in some contexts, especially on the local level. So you have that body of evidence. And the second body of evidence is revealed preference, or in other words, what do people actually spend their money on, and how often do they spend it, and do they come back to spend it more? And that the results from that piece, or from that data set, they can sometimes contradict what people say in public settings or in the confidence of a poll or a survey. So you have to balance both of these out and sort of see on average what are people actually doing, what is their revealed preference when it comes time to exchange their money for a product, and also what are they saying, what are they communicating, what sentiments are they actually outwardly expressing in a number of different settings. And so you have to take both of those into consideration. And that brings me to a point where I was having a conversation with a fellow podcaster, and he was bringing to my attention that I guess the new Topps Chrome WWE has, for some of the athletes, 10, 11, 12 different base set cards for these athletes, and each one of them takes its own one of one. And he was like, this is too much. This is too much. I don't want a product that has 10, 11, 12 different base set cards of my favorite wrestler, and then each one takes a superfractor one of one. It's just too much. And so you have the first type of evidence there. But let's see, when the product comes out and the singles are on the market, let's see what those superfractors sell for. Let's see how many of these boxes sell and at what price. And then we can combine those and sort of get an idea. the final thing I'll say is that this does come down to product configuration, as everybody I think on the screen was alluding to. If you have a product, for simplicity's sake, let's say it's going to have 10,000 unique pieces of cardboard, 10,000 different unique cards. If they're all one of ones, the notion of rarity that's embodied in the concept of a one of one is destroyed. There is nothing making any of these unique. They're all one of ones, so they might as well all not be one of ones. They're all equally common to each other. Every card in that product is as common as the next. But on the other hand, if you have no one of ones, if you have 10,000 pieces of cardboard in this product and there is nothing distinguishing it, they're all 10,000 identical copies of each other. Now everything is also equally common, but just in the opposite direction. Now, instead of them all being one of ones, they're all out of 10,000. Somewhere in between those extremes is the right recipe for a given product to have the appropriate balance of commons, tiers of rarity and parallels and inserts, and then your ultimate chase cards, your case hits, whether they're numbered or not, your one of ones, your out of tens. There is the right recipe, and all the incentives point towards these manufacturers, especially somebody like Fanatics who's holding 20-year licenses. All the incentives point towards they need to get that recipe, they need to get that formula correct in order to endure a 20-year license with multiple leagues.
That's why he's our closer. Carv, I mean, lots there, and you're nodding along. I think we all were. Would you like to respond to that with your thoughts? Because I know that you are, product configuration. That's what Chris was talking about, and he knew that we were all thinking that as well. Right. So important. I love how he put it. You've got the two extremes, and then you've got the equilibrium point, which I think the card companies are trying to find, and I don't think they'll ever get it perfect. I mean, it's tough to really hone in on it, but they'll do the best they can. Karvin, what do you think about that approach? Did that all really resonate well with you?
Majority of it is. So this is what I will say about creating sets, because number one, you're not creating one set a year. You're creating 30 sets per sport, right? So you have like, it's like, let's say if I was to talk about eating a meal, right? I always have this analogy of eating a meal, and this is not really for us. I think we all know the hobby, but more so for some of your guests. If I was to design a meal for people, we have fast food, let's say. One of the simple things is fast food. It satisfies your hunger. It's a quick hit. It's a less expensive meal, but that's all it does. If you're at a show, you're busy, you need a quick meal just to make sure that you're not hungry and you're starving and taking away your attention. Second of all, would be like a buffet mentality, right? Buffet mentality is like you go there, you pay one price, you get all kinds of value. I get all the pizza I want or all the crab I want, and I pay one price. And the more I eat, the more I have, like the more choices and more of a value equation. And then there's fine dining, which is more of an experience. It's about the ambience, it's about the look, it's about the design of the food and everything. Well, I always use this analogy because I explain to people what I have to create for trading cards. And a lot of people, believe it or not, 90% or 95% of people in the companies don't know anything about trading cards or what we do. They don't have no idea. So I have to explain it this way. I said, look, if I create 30 products, 10 of them could be fast food type. 15 of them be like buffet style. And the last 5 is your fine dining. Right, so more expensive, cater to a much more smaller a clique or a clique of a group of collectors. Much more expensive. That it's going to be a expensive experience for you. And this is what I will say. So you can create products to what Chris is saying. There's a bunch of collectors. They know what they want. You create products especially for them. If you're creating a Topps Chrome or a Prism, you know what they want. Right now, the balance that we're talking about is creating all these one-on-ones. Well, the card companies are looking for people to open product. They're not so worried about the secondary market people initially, short term. Long term, yes. But short term, you're talking about repeat purchase model. The guy that opens a case after a case after a case, they want to see those their product become liquid. So thus, they're going to put so many hits per box, right? So you have your reds, your blues that are higher number are not numbered. You have your retail versions that aren't numbered. You have to have that, or else people will not break it. So what I would say is those products, you know what you're getting, do what you got to do all your parallels. Now, where the issue is that then all of a sudden you have your buffet type style products. And I always have fun with buffet type style products. A lot of it is more like set collecting type product, like a UD1, where I have my Young Guns stacked on one side and I have all my base cards stacked on one side and I have all the inserts, all the parallels, everything else stacked, right? And for me, I like fine dining because after a buffet, I get so stuffed that experience wasn't that good. Now that's just me, right? That's not everyone else. Some people are like, oh man, look at all this stack of cards. These are like $2 to $20 a piece. I can get a return on my box. I can make 2x, 3x on my box. So I like that. I like listing it. And I enjoy eBaying stuff, or I enjoy putting it on COMC or selling it to people like, at dollar boxes and stuff like that, and the grind. So that's more of a buffet type style, right? So you know what you're getting. People know what they're getting. And then at the end, for the innovative products, create something that no one's ever seen. Like I wish I could create products today, because in the era that I was creating products, all everyone ever wanted was patches and autographs. You did a parallel out of 10. No one even cared about that card. That was like a $30 card back then, right? So I was like, oh man, like people are talking about PMGs, they're talking about other inserts, they're looking at the card art, they're looking at designs. This is where I get excited about this. I was like, man, I wish I could create something, because that's what I was looking for, that secret formula back then. It was like, how do we get away from it? And the sad part about it is that when you show it to collectors, like, for example, we came out with jambalayas when we had the Flair license, and we showed it to the collectors, like, oh man, look at these jambalayas. And you know what? And exactly, I said, you know what? What do you think would make jambalayas better? What did every single collector there said? Put an autograph on there or make it out of 10. And I'm like, no, it already sells for $400. Why would I want to make it out of 10? If I make it out of 10, that becomes a $700, and that jambalaya is worth $100. You're just taking the value away from the base version, if that's the case. So you gotta fine tune it, that you just can't parallel every single item to 10 and 1 and 5 and all that. There's certain hits that are like platinum portraits. They're not numbered. They're way out there. You don't know if there's 10 or there's 100 of them, but at least when you hit it, you go, wow, I got something special, right? Yeah. But I'm not just talking about platinum patches. I'm talking about everything. There is so much technology. There's so much things that could be done in the hobby that have not been tapped. And I will challenge the card companies to start doing that, right? The next level of our hobby is what I call gamification. How do we take trading cards that have, right now it's the value of looking at a card and showing it off. Take that and how to adjust it to gamify it. There was gamification on a lot of hockey products, even products today. It's called set collecting. That's a gamification. When you want to collect a set, or a player collector, like Chris collects certain players and he'll say, I have to buy that card. It's a 101 black. That's gamification, because he's trying to round up his set. He's trying to be an apex predator, or apex, not predator, but collector, and collect everything. So that's gamification. How do you gamify?
That's what PSA did so brilliantly with the set registry. They gamified collecting. That was the most brilliant innovation that had nothing to do with manufacturing cards. And to this day, I have to think it's a big part of what propelled them to where they are today. Just a brilliant. So because of what we have a case study with not a non-manufacturer, but in our space, how well it works. I think you're onto something, and it's maybe it's just a matter of time.
It took a long time for that registry to people to click in. I got to be that guy.
Well, that's okay though.
Yeah,
but that's somewhere, right?
Exactly. So that's why I would say is like you got to change things. And then lastly, for every card company, aside from even we're talking about the collectors, the feedback panels, and coming with something, what every card company actually needs is a Hoge. And I'm not saying Hoge as in, I don't want to butter them up or put them on the pedestal and say that they need something like that.
Too late, you did it.
But what they need is someone that is really good with analytics and look at secondary market value. Not the one hit that's $1 million, the one hit's $100,000, but across the board, do you get your value per box? Like,
you know who they should be targeting for filling those positions are capologists from sports franchises, right? Whoever's running the salary cap metrics, and calculations get those people into the card companies. You got sports and you got analytics.
So you got all these great people coming up with ideas about marketing, all these great hits and all that. What they're lacking is the postmortem. Because we're so busy with trying to hit the schedules and doing deals with the new athletes and all that. No one's worried about the aftermarket and what the sell-through is and how long it takes to sell through and what values are and what collector base it is. And you got to have that for every single product. Yeah. And to my knowledge, I don't think any card company does a lot on the postmortems.
So I hope they're listening. Some opportunities there for them to just improve, I suppose. Let's do some comments, guys. I got a few that I've marked off here. Andrew Deutsch here says, not having a strong rookie class is a good thing, in my opinion. There will be some diamonds in the rough. Jokic was drafted during a Taco Bell commercial. So, some thoughts on some benefits of a strong rookie class, perhaps. Auburn 35 says, fun note that is still relevant today. The NBA requested that Fleer remove congrats from the back of memorabilia cards to avoid consumer confusion on cards that were not actually game used. I did not know that, Auburn, and I love it. Dave H says, Karvin, during your time at Upper Deck, did you find out what the SP in SP Authentic stands for? Do you know what SP stands for? This is a yes or no question. Do you know?
There's rumors about it, but no one knows exactly what it stands for.
Nobody
knows. I believe it's supposed to stand for super premium, but that's what I heard. Yeah.
Christina's PC says, Chris comes on, Jay Lee disappears, never fails. You know what? If we moved Chris to the front of the show, it would happen. That's I'm drinking water during the show. You gotta step away once in a while there. Nick Chen says, whenever I travel, I have to know where the closest shop is. I think a lot of people are like that. Mr. Mano says, we need our hobby shop. They're the backbone of the hobby. Bob Boozle says, it comes down to communication, something companies in the hobby struggle with. I don't think you'll get a lot of pushback on that one, Bob Boozle. Mr. Minty says, oh, we did that one already. Sorry, Bob Boozle, all I want is utopia. Make it happen. Carlos says, if 75% of the population makes less than $6,000 a month, how can Fanatics and Panini justify selling boxes at these prices? Now, they're selling. How can they justify it? I think it's because they are selling them. No? Right. Okay. Justin Bode says, has the focus, this is a great question here from Justin. And we'll come back. Actually, Karvin, read that and we're going to come back to it. I think it's important. That's a question I want to ask you. I love that question from Justin. But Bob Boozle says, I'm going to copy and paste this segment into ChatGPT to get the summary. That's what Chris was speaking earlier. LGC says Fanatics is on the right track by memorializing events and significant feats and allowing collectors to possibly hold and feel part of the experience. That's some innovation. I agree with that. Bob Boozle says, wish the Baconator was in the dollar menu. Give me a big fat juicy burgers, but at really good value. Again, I like the Papa with cheese from A&W. Foul Ball says the buffet only pays if you're hungry, though, which unless you really like the food and that's where you got to go to get it. But yeah, it makes sense. Bob Boozle says all you can eat buffet is my wife's lifestyle. Rage says the problem is people want a buffet price, but caviar in their PC. Mic drop. I think he's right about that. Bob Boozle says, collect news alert. Karvin's speech makes current card executives feel inadequate. Benny Cromwell says, hello, guys. Love the format. Enjoy listening during the week on podcast. Thank you, Benny. And Foul Ball says, brilliance. I think the registry is part of the scam. And, but Foul Ball's comment there. Okay, let's go back now to the comment. Oh, no, I lost it. How did I lose the comment? I lost the comment.
The Justin Gold comment about the logistics. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was from Justin. Oh my gosh, how did I lose that one? I did not mean to lose that comment, Justin. But yeah, Carv, I'm going to look for it. Wait a second. I'm about to find it here, guys. I'm about to find Justin's. Scrolling through a ton of them here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it now.
I can answer it.
Okay. I'm glad you were
so his comment was based on ever since the pandemic, the logistics and everything is an issue and catching up. And then how do you insert innovation if that's the case, if you're always trying to catch up? Well, this is what I'll say. In any company, you have, so let's look at Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 50 companies. You got to have a research and development team. That's where innovation comes in. If you're a pharmaceuticals company that I can't produce enough pills for, all these different diseases, and all of a sudden I can't come up with the next drug, then you're done. Because once you lose that 7 years of that formula, that elusive formula, then everyone can create generic pills, and you're no longer in business. You have to innovate. Innovation is part of the key of any business you are. I had an uncle long time ago that said something to me when I was a teenager. He said, what is the one thing that's important to anything, whether you're a species, dinosaurs, companies, you as a person? And I said, what? He goes, 2 words. This is the key to life, right? That's what he said to me. And life, career, whatever, the companies, he said, new blood. He said, new blood. He said, if you can't adapt or change or innovate for your company or for your species, you're going to die. So he said, so for me, I can't have new blood because I'm the same person, right? But that's for me to refresh and change my mind and look at every year when I created a product, the same product year after year, you'll notice, and I'm sure you follow the cup quite a bit. There's always new ideas in the cup. Yeah. And there's always new ideas. Like we're talking about milestones.
Well, Carv,
how many different milestones did you?
Karvin, I used to say to you, like 15 years ago, I would say to you, Karv, this is a great card, but why isn't it autographed? Jeremy, it's not autographed this year. I need something for next year, right?
Exactly. So, I've always had something up my sleeve that I follow up with next year when I'm creating a product, so I can bring it back the following year. Besides that, other things that we can do, right? So every year you got to refresh it up a bit. You can't just have the same product year after year after year and rely on that.
You talk about new blood, and to me, it's like adapting, right? Surviving is adapting. The only constant is change in our world, So I'm with you on all that. Joe, you want to jump in? I see you're off mute. That's my indication that maybe you got something really scholarly to share with us.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But no, I don't want to necessarily encroach on a conversation point that I think Chris and I had discussed as a possible feature of this show, or maybe some future show. But while we have Karvin here, I would very much like to know his thoughts on, because I thought I saw him making some kind of response when I was mentioning the potential of like the end of the Prism era, and maybe he has greater sensibilities about whether that set or issue or design will carry on in some way. But I'm curious, Karvin, as from your perspective, with your longstanding awareness of sets and brands, how are you feeling about kind of, at least ostensibly, the player license time of Panini in the major sports?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think Prisms is still going to survive, right? It's still going to be produced in following years after the licenses are done with Panini. One, we see unlicensed product in all the sports right now, right? So they're probably going to look at doing that. That's number one. They still have soccer. They're going to have the World Cup soccer, I believe, for the next 1 or 2 more World Cups. So they're going to produce Prism World Cup, Prism of the leagues that they have in the soccer leagues. And then what's interesting about Panini now is that now they're trying to look at different IPs. And it's interesting because now they're, when you're back a dog in the corner, then you start fighting back, you start biting back. And what they've noticed is that, okay, well, we'll go after Live Golf. And I don't know if you know, but Live Golf Prism just released on, I believe, this Friday, and it's doing extremely well. I actually talked to a lot of people and say, hey, you might want to order some Live Golf. And they said, nah, I don't want to order Live Golf. And I'm like, they don't have Tiger. I'm like, but they have a bunch of other rookies that never had a card before, and you might want to order some, because what's interesting about Prism is that UFC and WWE, there wasn't hardly any excitement back in the day in 2020, even about those two IPs. All of a sudden, Prism came up, and it just boosted everyone's interested in UFC and WWE. Now, that may be in part to those two IPs during the pandemic came back the first to come back, and there was that collaboration in terms of timing and everything, and those two IPs exploded, right? So that could be it too. But Prism, like I remember when Prism UFC first came out, it was over $1,000 a box. Chromium UFC, it was like $60-$70 a box, like back in 2018 or so. So all of a sudden, like that Prism brand lifted up UFC, lifted up WWE, and now it's lifting up golf, even despite not having Tiger, right? And they're also producing a Rolling Stones Prism set.
Yeah.
Right. So they're looking at different things. And I heard through the grapevine, they're doing something, I believe they're doing Minecraft. So which appeals to what? Kids, which is actually good for our hobby. Because now you're introducing kids to trading cards. And will that transition to sports? Or whether it doesn't transition to sports, they'll still start collecting trading cards. So they'll understand opening packs, collecting color blasts, collecting, and then maybe they may move on to other sports or other IPs too as well when they grow up and change and say, oh, I want to watch baseball, and they'll start buying baseball. So now it's forcing the hobby to change where they're producing sets that are culture based or more kid based. And when you look at those IPs, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. There's huge opportunities there, right? So I would say, guess what? I don't think Panini is going away, and they're going to be looking at those avenues, right? And Upper Deck just got DC, right? They lost Marvel to Fanatics, but they got DC and they got Looney Tunes, which is interesting. More of a retro type brand for Looney Tunes and DC, but still, I think all the card companies are going to look at different IPs and look at those opportunities, and that's great. That's good for the hobby.
Looney Tunes sounds smart to me because you see them with the Metal product, the Metal Universe product, and the PMGs and the Jambalayas and all that, which are appealing to a lot of these, Gen Xers and whatever gen came after Gen X. I can't keep track of all these gens, but I'm sure they'll be able to do well with that for a few years. Bob Boozle here said, Panini Research and Development, too busy exploring different animal skins. I thought that was funny. And LGC says, Hoj, if Fanatics makes a Doncic gets traded to the Lakers card, will you buy it?
Possibly. Depends upon what it looks like. And what do you have there, Karvin?
It's a Bugs Bunny 86-87.
Oh, nice.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
But do you have the star, Karvin? Do you have the star 101?
In which is
Star 101. Nice. Okay, guys, we are gonna wrap this up. It is daylight savings night as well. Is that today or tomorrow? Is that tomorrow or today? That's
tonight.
Today. That's
it's
tonight.
Today. Yep.
That's tonight. So we're gonna try and save ourselves a little bit of time to sleep. And hi, John. We'll say your name. Hi, John. Welcome to the show. Okay. I want to okay, so are you guys good to wrap up? Chris, Chris, you've had a lot of silent stretches, I know, but when you do speak, you speak quite nicely. Anything you'd like to add before we do sort of take it around the final round the horn and do wrap this up?
Jeremy, you know what my friend George once told me? Leave them wanting more.
Yeah, there you go. How about you, Joe? Where are you at?
No, I appreciated Karvin's perspective because I have a little nostalgia about the Prism brand potentially going away, and so it's good to hear. And I guess the only consideration, I don't want to open a big old can of worms, but I just wonder if Fanatics will push back in some way, or as you said, a dog backed into the corner. That's when you see kind of their fighting spirit. I'm just curious how this whole tension between these two organizations plays out.
Well, let's just put it this way. Let's not worry about the tension. Let's hope they create products for us that gives great memories of all the Panini brands that are the IPs are going away, and hopefully they can innovate. And same thing goes for Fanatics and Upper Deck. We want to see innovation, and I think the hobby is hungry for innovation, and that's one area that is. There has been some innovations, but I want to see something big, like something really big, something unique.
I just want to let's just take a quick step back and just there has been some innovation. I hear you, Carv. You want more. You want to see a big innovation, but I think we often call for innovation without recognizing it when it does happen, and we have seen some, and I think Fanatics has done a great job with some innovations. I think Upper Deck has done a fine job with some of their new inserts, and I'll say even some of the Outburst was a great innovation. It's a new stock, but they've done some nice things there too. So, and Panini, they can only innovate as genetics produces new animals. I mean, I kid, but they've done some innovations as well, I believe. Just to give them, let's give them some credit. I think it's fair.
Right. Well, when I refer to innovation, it's not just about the single cards either. Like I said, gamification, that's being innovative. Innovate in terms of marketing, which Fanatics has done a great job with marketing and Rip Nights and all that. That's innovative. There's other ways of innovation too as well outside of it. Could be distribution or how you deal with the retailers. There's innovative ideas across the board, right? Like the whole entire business to scale, not just the single cards. But let's put it this way: in the last 30 years, we've seen EV, we've seen so many innovations in the world, and whereas I will say there's more innovations that I've seen in the 90s to 2000 than I see today.
Yeah.
And the dollars are way higher too per product now, right? So there is opportunity to spend that extra money to do R&D, to do some innovative ideas.
All right, guys. David Chase just got here. Let's go a couple more hours. No, denied, but we will be back next Saturday. Yitz is in the house. What's up, Yitz? Mark Santucci, thank you very much. GC, appreciate you being here. Mr. Manos, good night to you. Good night, Jeff McMahon. Always appreciate you being here. Linda's first son, Michael, says another great night of 3 hours with Jeremy and the boys, and chat was on fire. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for that. Linda's first. Mr. Minty, thank you, Steve. Good to see you tonight. Thanks for popping in for an extended day. Mark Santucci, thank you, as always, for being here with us. Foulball says, innovation, who cares about that anymore? Rage says, I do. Justin Bode, good to see you, my friend. Good night to you guys. All right, guys. We're wrapping this up. We're wrapping this up. We'll be back Saturday. Joe, I will be here. Chris, that's me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Now I can.
You're back. You glitched for a second.
Are you there?
Josh.
No.
I think I'm here. Am I here? Can
Now
you hear
we
me? Can you see me? Okay. Guys, we're going to end this because it's happening right now. But guys, thank you for being Rage. I see you. Thank you very much. Foulball, thank you and good night. Andrew, thank you. Guys, this episode of Sports Cards Live for March the 8th, 2025, we're going to try this again, is now
Over.
Over.
Over. Good night, everybody. Thank you once again. Have a great weekend.